Good morning. I'd like to call to order this special meeting of Council Tuesday, November 18th, 2025, 9 a.m. Council Chambers, Town of St. Mary's. We are broadcasting on the Town of St. Mary's YouTube channel. The Council for the Town of St. Mary's acknowledges with gratitude and respect that we are gathering on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, people of the Longhouse, giving thanks for all creation. I'll begin this morning by asking for declarations of pecuniary interest, starting with Councillor Craigmile.
None.
Councillor Edney.
None.
Councillor Luna.
None.
Councillor Pridham.
None.
Councillor Alward.
None.
And I have none. Councillor Lucas sends his regrets for this morning. He had some personal obligations. Item number 3 is the agenda. It was circulated. Are there any areas or emissions or problems with the agenda as circulated? Seeing nothing, I'll seek a motion that the November 18th, 2025 special meeting of council agenda be accepted as presented. Someone willing to move that? Councillor Craigmile moves, seconded by Councillor Luna. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item number 4 is the overview of the Mayor's 2026 capital and operating budget. And I'd just like to make a brief comment before we move this out. In the press recently in Stratford, there was a suggestion that I'd been burning the midnight oil and making some amendments to reduce the tax rate. And I want to make it very clear for council and the public that we made a very strong statement that we would work cooperatively and collaboratively on this budget. Council has met several times to talk about strategic initiatives as well as targets for fiscal responsibility, and that's what we lay out for staff. Staff has made the budget in total, and we have asked them to meet our goals and targets as we've moved along. We have made a strong statement to the provincial government. We are not in favor of the current system of the strong mayor powers. We believe that we've done everything that we can to improve housing in this community with the tools giving us, and we will continue to work collaboratively as a council. But I want to clarify that in case there's any misunderstanding, because there was recent press that suggested that I had made all these special moves, and that's certainly not the case. So I'll then turn it over to Spencer and Mr. Kittmer to please clarify where we're at and explain the process going forward, please.
Sure. So I'll just talk about procedural matters, and then Mr. Steckley will jump on the line just to talk about the numbers. So as the mayor alluded to, his direction to staff was that he wished for the budget process to be as similar this year as it had been in previous years. So what we've done throughout several meetings with council is to design a system that looks very closely like it did last year and your previous years, but we still have to respect that the strong mayor legislation does apply to our budget process. So on October 21st, council, you reviewed staff's budget, which proposed just under a 4% taxation increase once we net out growth. And you reviewed, I think, 70 plus capital projects, and there were very little amendments that day. Our plan forward after October 21st was to clean up any changes and then to present a budget to the mayor that he could formally put on the table on November 11th. And then starting on November 11th, a 30-day amendment period started for council. So statutorily, you now have 30 days to make amendments to the budget, and we are at day 7. So we're hosting this meeting today for you to now see the mayor's budget, which was the binder provided last week, to understand any changes that have happened since October 21st, which Mr. Steckley will go through, and they've been very minor in nature. So there have been updates to the budget to implement decisions made on October 21st, and as new numbers have come in. As we traditionally do, we'd like you to hear all of your external transfers and external requests today. So you have a number of delegations that you'll hear. You'll consider your fees as well as your reserve policy. And once you're finished that, in staff's mind, you've gone through every portion of the budget that you need to start making decisions whether or not you want to make amendments. So what we've done is we've placed a report at the end of the agenda to facilitate that discussion about whether you want to amend the agenda, or amend the budget in any way. And if you do, the clerk has prepared more formalized resolutions, again, just fitting the theme of the legislation. If you choose not to make amendments, then we'd like to have a discussion about whether or not you want to shorten the amendment period so that we could have the budget deemed adopted this week or next. So what we're asking for today is that you hear the information and wait to discuss any amendments or changes until the end. So that would include any of the changes that Mr. Steckley presents to you, as well as any of the requests that you hear from your external parties. So with that, I'll leave it to Mr. Steckley to jump online just to explain some of the changes that have been outlined in the mayor's memo. And then we can take any general questions about process and the budget once he's done.
Good morning. So as Brent alluded to, there have been very minor changes presented in the mayor's budget. These have been highlighted based on departmental changes. Again, as new information comes in, we revise these estimates. So the first change I'll kind of highlight, I'll kind of go department by department. So with regards to administration, we did update the budget to include the municipal election that will be taking place in 2026. So we included the reserve transfer of 30,000, as well as the associated election expenses. So that has a net impact to the overall levy of $0. We also received an updated budget from the city of Stratford with regards to PC Connect. So those expenses in the contracted service line have been updated by $5,000. With regards to billing and development services, council approved a part-time custodian at the October 21st meeting. And as a result, the wages and benefits expense has increased by approximately $22,000. Similarly, with community services, based on a review, recreation has decreased their wages and expenses by approximately $7,000, while facilities department has increased theirs by $11,739. And this is just to better reflect the projected actuals. With finance, our grant revenue has increased by 49,000, and this reflects confirmation from the province that with regards to the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. So we got confirmation on the funds we'll be receiving. So the grant has been correspondingly updated by $49,000. With regards to external transfers, there was a minor change related to the city of Stratford. And based on the budget that we received, we have decreased those expenses by approximately $2,200. In keeping with the external transfers, with regards to Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, we are now showing a transfer from reserve of $91,567, while we're also increasing the associated expenses by $91,567. So the overall net impact to the levy is $190,000, which remains the same as what was presented to you in the staff budget. All we're doing here is we're just trying to reflect the reserve transfer, so it's shown in the budget. With regards to library services, there were some minor changes to some expense lines. Those have been noted within the mayor's memo. Again, these have been updated to reflect the projected actuals. So as you can see, the expenses have actually decreased when you factor the total changes there. With public works, the wages and benefits line, this increased as a result of council's approval of an engineering co-op student. And so that was an increase of approximately $15,000. And then just some other items I'd like to bring to council's attention. We've updated, well, as a result of these changes, the 10-year capital outlook has been updated to include the downtown beautification project. So just the changes with regards to that, including their 10-year forecast, as well as the reserve transfer related to the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority that I just spoke to. The capital budget summary has also been updated with a minor change, and that's just to reflect the total budgeted cost for the downtown St. Mary's beautification project. As you can see there, it went up approximately $8,000. And then finally, the reserve and reserve fund schedule. So that's tab 3 in your budget binders. That's been updated to include the changes as well. So if we factor in all these changes, the overall levy increase is approximately $817,551. Factoring in estimated growth of $200,000, the net levy increase to the operational budget is approximately 3.88%, which achieves council's target of a 4% net increase. I will note the capital budget, as I referred to moments ago, was increased slightly by $8,000 up to $8,318,700. Happy to take any questions that council may have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for our treasurer with regards to process or specific items in the budget he's outlined? Councilor Craig Mao?
Thank you, Worship. When I looked at the summary presented, I thought it was extremely important that what you didn't really talk about, Spencer, is where we saw that 817,000 and change, that increase this year. Which, if I look at some of the notes that I prepared here, it shows that the wages and benefits went up like $540,000, but actually, if I look at what the town operations was, because we found efficiencies in other areas, I've got the town operation at about $286,000, which is only about 35% of the levy increase. And then if I look at police, which is a little over 198,000, that's 24.2% of the levy increase. And I look at external transfers, 187,000 and change, that's 23% of the levy increase. So and one thing I didn't include, I left separate, was 90 Carling Street, because that's 17.7% of levy, but I'm looking at that as an investment the town made for 10 years down the road of growth. So I think it's real important when you're looking at those summaries that you really understand that the town operations has been very efficient. And of the total 817,000 increase is less than 50% of that. So I think that's really, really important to stress. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything further from council? Okay. Mr. Kittmer, anything about process?
No, as I mentioned, in terms of process, you've now heard your summary. You've heard that there's been very, very little changes to the budget that you saw on October 21st. So what we'd like you to do today is to hear from your external requests. And as I said, consider your fees for next year, consider the minor change to your reserve policy. And then at the end of the meeting, we will facilitate a discussion with council. It's quite complicated once you start looking at if this happens, then this could happen in terms of the legislation and what the timelines actually look at. But we'll try our best just to help council navigate that. If you do make an amendment today, then it triggers further statutory periods related to the mayor's veto, but we do have the opportunity to shorten all of our timelines to make sure we get through the budget quickly and efficiently, and we don't spill over into the holiday season. So I think that's really our goal, is that we work together to find a way to make sure the timelines get us to a point where the budget is certainly a pass before the holiday season this year.
And I think it's also important that we stress that the reason we have tried to make our budget process expedient, is to get tenders on the line in term, which has worked well for capital, but also that the departments can get their projects moving ahead. Being a smaller municipality, we found past history that the quicker we get things decided and ahead, the better pricing we get. And it's worked quite well on several projects, bridges, roads, everything. Also in terms of department efficiency, things that we want to do strategically, even down at the flats or whatever, if the staff can get working on it, we seem to come out in a better position. We've seen that year after year. So that's the reason. It's not that we're hurrying the budget process along. We're actually trying to be more fiscally prudent, and it's worked well in the past. So we're trying to, in my opinion, this is all about cutting down some of the bureaucracy and moving things ahead so we can keep moving as a municipality, and it's worked well the last 3 or 4 years. And that was another reason why we wanted to try and keep the budget process as similar as in the past, because it's worked well, in my opinion. Okay. Anything else, Spencer, before we go? You're okay to chime in if we have problems. I understand you're not feeling well if something happens.
Yeah, that's not a problem, and nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much to you both. All right, item number 5 is public input. I've not received anything. I'll defer to our clerk. Was there anything come in online today? Okay, so nothing as far as public input, which leads us to item number 6, which is Upper Thames delegations. We welcome today Tracy Annett, who's the General Manager of the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. She's appeared before council before. And of course, Councillor Craig Mile is also there to back her up if there's a tough question, so we know he's done his homework actually. So welcome, Tracy. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so to start off, I understand our materials are included in your agenda package starting on page 11. I'm happy to be here today to give an overview of our budget and really a quick recap of the materials that were provided to you in advance. So with the next slide, have that up on screen. There we go. Yes, so this is the title page of the package is the full board agenda package, as well as we provided a bit of an overview package for each municipality that's specifically to the town of St. Mary's, and the correspondence that went along with that. But I always like to highlight that the Upper Thames River watershed is a broad area. The town of St. Mary's is one of our municipalities within that. We've always, as CAs, formed with that municipal partnership in mind. We try to leverage those municipal dollars to provide as much environmental benefit as possible that ultimately benefits the entire watershed. So, that next slide. As a reminder, through legislative changes over the last few years, we were required to divide our budget into our mandatory programs, which are those that are defined through regulation by the province that CAs must provide. Non-mandatory programs and services, it's where a municipality may request a service of the CA. For example, in the town of St. Mary's, risk management services for drinking water source protection would fall under that Category 2 program. And then Category 3 programs are services that benefit the broader watershed, and through our watershed strategy have identified it as a priority to continue those programs and services. Next slide. Through our draft budget process, again, this is still a draft. Budget figures will be refined and change over the coming months. Oftentimes there are additional funding opportunities that come our way that we can apply. And as we get more information on some of our capital budgets and some responses back to information tenders, et cetera, we refine those as well. What we've tried to do is illustrate a fairly balanced budget. We are showing a little bit of a deficit because oftentimes we do recognize that there are some other funding opportunities that are coming in between now and the end of the year. Overall, for the watershed, there's a 4.9% increase in the municipal share of those mandatory programs and services. Next slide. When we develop our budget, there's a number of things that we're considering. First and foremost, that's stability in delivering those mandatory programs and services at our current service levels. We have adjusted for cost of living and pay increases to stay competitive based on those merit increases where they apply. Inflation is certainly driving some of our construction prices. The London area have seen 14.5% increases since 2023, and that range has been between 5 and 17% over the last several years. We do have a multi-year contract with Canada Water Agency that's providing significant funding for our Category 3 programs and to deliver watershed-wide phosphorus reduction programming. We also have some staffing needs to support succession planning in some of our senior positions to ensure continuity. I'll touch on those a little bit later. We're also anticipating that the province will be extending the fees freeze and reductions in other federal funding. But with that fees freeze, that's been ongoing for the last few years when it comes to planning and development permit applications. So, that next slide. Under our operating budget, again, those categories of programs, Category 1, it's just a slight deficit for $49,000, and already we've just received some word in some additional funding to support some of our updates to floodplain mapping. So I'm expecting that will be balanced. With Category 2, that is a balanced budget as well. There's a slight surplus, but that was always planned with our partners in London, wanting to have a little bit of a surplus this year to bridge a bit of a funding gap for next year. And for our Category 3 programs, aside from the campgrounds, we separate those out as other Category programs and services. We've certainly seeing a deficit of $269,000. And again, that doesn't include any of those funding applications that are currently in progress or yet to be announced. We always call that soft revenue, and usually between the end of the year and the fiscal, there's new opportunities for funding that are announced. We have some surpluses projected in our campgrounds and are earmarked for capital improvements that are long overdue in those areas. Next slide. So some highlights of changes. Certainly what we've seen from 2025 to this draft budget for 2026 is some of those staffing updates for succession planning. Those succession planning is key for our corporate services department, but also our water management programs, ensuring continuity, making sure that we've got sufficient staffing and overlapping for some of our dam maintenance activities. Again, allowing for some learning on the job and transfer of skills, especially when we're dealing with those unique structures. We have had additional federal funds for flood hazard mapping. The capital maintenance levy, we have seen a reduction this year for the town of St. Mary's from previous years, but also having those discussions early on with municipal staff to refine some of the capital project plans and updated cost estimates. So I understand my staff were in contact with Jeff Wolf back in October to kind of have those early on discussions before finalizing. Next slide, please. Overall, the operating funding sources, I always like to show this pie, grouping all of our programs and services together, piecing out the amounts for the town of St. Mary's, that operating levy around $230,000 there, but really showing kind of the operating levy in that navy blue for all of our municipalities. Kind of equal parts, the self-generated revenue that we're able to provide and support our programs and services, and then the other pieces that are coming from some of our provincial transfer payments under the Conservation Authorities Act. That $181,213 has been pretty much the same for many years, and at one time was double that amount. The provincial transfer payment under the Clean Water Act does support not only the Upper Thames jurisdiction, but also the Lower Thames and the St. Clair under the Thames and Sydenham and Region Source Protection Area, and then a number of provincial and federal grants that we go out and we apply to. These are not just transfer payments, these are funding programs that our staff are leveraging those municipal dollars through what we receive through cost apportioning agreements and getting some additional funds that way. Next slide. Our operating expenses, as you can see, almost half is for those Category 1 mandatory programs and services. Those things that include environmental planning and regulations, our water management, land management, provincial water monitoring stations, our drinking water source protection when it comes to the planning side, not the risk management services, our watershed strategy implementation, and those essential corporate costs. Category 2 programs and services, again, the drinking water source protection risk management services, that's the implementation of the plan, and then other municipal contract work we undertake. For Category 3 programs and services, those are our land stewardship programs, getting out, working with landowners, doing extension work on their properties, community partnerships and education and events that we hold, other ecological monitoring, and certainly the water quality database management and our land lease management. And our other Category 3 programs are our campground services. So it really shows kind of the distribution of the work that we take and we undertake, I should say. With our capital budget, again, we've got old infrastructure, so there's always capital work planned to maintain that aging infrastructure. The costs really vary, though, depending on which municipality we're in, because if it's a benefiting municipality, some of the timing of the projects will certainly influence and impact those budgets very differently. As I had mentioned previously, that 5 to 17% in building construction price index in the London area is a big driver of some of those additional costs. We always apply for alternative funding through the Water and Erosion Control Infrastructure Program. The timing of when those dollars come in, again, it's based on their fiscal year end. So where we know those amounts we've applied, we're still waiting to hear on some funding sources in that way. And again, when we have approved funding, we update those project costs, and they'll be reflected in the final budget. We don't review that until February at our annual general meeting. So, next slide, please. With benefit-based capital, there's a few projects planned. Certainly work in the flood wall in the tune of $71,000. Wildwood Dam this year, it's around $87,000. Additional stop logs. There's a gate feasibility study in phase 1 repairs. We've had to do some mold remediation down in the dam itself, and some vegetation removal and safety improvements are planned. Piddock Dam as well, there's a small portion, $508, that's attributed to the town of St. Mary's with a total of $158,764. I think if you do the math, sometimes there's a rounding error of $1, so I'll point that out now. Next slide, please. Here's the general and benefit-based structure levies combined, but also seeing the operating in there as well. Looking at the general levies, both the operating and capital amounts, the overall contributions by municipalities over $7 million. St. Mary's amount there is $106,000. The capital side of that overall, we see municipalities around $475,000, with St. Mary's portion being just shy of $7,000 there. And then we move into the benefit-based structure levies for operating. There's lots of work going on. You see $1.57 million there overall, the St. Mary's portion being $122,000. And then those benefit-based capital amounts are where we're seeing lots of work going on. West London Dykes London is one of them this year, so a huge portion is over $5.8 million. St. Mary's, there's a little bit less work going on, but $35,000 overall. Next slide. So overall, for our municipalities, we're trying to get under that 5% increase for levies. Again, that driver is based on modified current value assessment values that are provided by the province. Cost apportioning agreements that we have with our member municipalities, a 4.3% increase. When it's levies for operations and major repairs, 0.6% increase. And when you're averaging all of that municipal support, 0.97% increase. But in the next slide for St. Mary's, considering the changes from last year, the modified current value assessment is driving things up a little bit for the town because of growth, 4.8% for cost apportioning. We're also seeing a reduction of over 9% for operations and major repairs, and a reduction overall from last year of 3.3% for that municipal support. So next slide, just wanted to highlight some of the work we're doing with cost apportioning agreements. Certainly have Kelly and Thomas up there during our tree power days, but delivering those landowner stewardship projects. You know, we're happy to be in St. Mary's this March for our landowner workshop, bringing in landowners from around the community to learn more about stewardship and restoration work and what we can partner with them to do on their own properties. Undertaking our subwatershed planning and monitoring those science-based decisions and having information available. In the town, we have over 6 sites for fish sampling that inform our broader water quality network. And then community outreach and education. We're lucky to have the Perth County Children's Water Festival. And also I'd highlight the Library Park Pass program as well. We provide 3 park passes that were signed out over 134 times already this year. So to go out and to use our parks, any one of our parks, and have that entrance fee provided in the park pass. Next slide. With our communications, you'll have the draft budget overview that's been provided along with the budget materials. Those are all circulated to our member municipalities. Really wanting to highlight with the insert, each municipality gets their own that really breaks out that benefit-based capital amounts and cost apportioning amounts for each municipality. I'm out doing budget presentations for council input, but in January we review the comments received, and then in February the budget consideration again is at the annual general meeting. So a few touch points and opportunities for communications between now and that budget approval process. Next slide. Certainly happy to answer any questions, and as mentioned, Jim and Councillor Craig Mahler is here to provide support and answer questions too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Questions from council? Councillor Luna.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering about non-mandatory programs, Tracy. Are there any that affect St. Mary's that we're paying for?
Yes, there is amounts in that the town is contributing towards, and those non-mandatory programs are everything from our education and outreach activities, the Children's Water Festival that I just mentioned, having the Park Pass program, and the landowner stewardship, because we do provide that for all of our rural municipalities, who ultimately work that they're doing on their lands helps improve water quality downstream. So when we're talking about those types of programs, but then also the additional information that we gather through our watershed report cards, and that's additional water quality information, additional information on woodlot covers, natural heritage, that can inform decision-making through planning processes. You have a better sense of what water quality is, where there should be targeted areas for improvement, and even inform official plan policies. So that isn't something that's considered mandatory, but it's something certainly that we're undertaking. And then, of course, there's a number of projects that your staff team partner with, everything from some of the meadow plantings that have been done in Sparling Woods, the tree power program, any opportunity where there can be implementation of a low impact design. Our staff are there to partner and deliver programs that are a benefit to the town as well.
Do you have any idea of what that total amount for non-mandatory programs would be? Just a ballpark figure would be good.
For the town of St. Mary's, it's just over 9,600.
9,000? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? Councillor Pridham?
Thank you, through your worship. Just a question about mandatory drinking water source protection. Okay, so we do that, and then we contract a risk management. And what does that involve, and how, like, what sort of work are you doing here in St. Mary's to pay that extra cost?
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor Pridham, through the mayor. When it comes to the drinking water source protection, the mandatory part is the development of the source protection plan. When it comes to implementation under the Clean Water Act, each municipality is responsible for implementing that plan. We have staff that are risk management officials that look at and review any activity that is proposed within a significant threat area within the town of St. Mary's. And there's quite a few significant threat areas within the town because it's such a high groundwater interaction. Groundwater under direct influence of surface water is what they call it, or a GUDI system. So with those, each threat to drinking water, depending on the activities, have to be managed. So our risk management office is providing services to review different changes in use, identify if a risk management plan needs to be completed, and then negotiating those risk management plans. In some cases, there's also prohibitions, and certain activities are not permitted. So I understand that there was at least 6 risk management plans either in progress right now or close to being completion, and 2 complete risk management plans in place. There's a number of reviews of, again, any land use change. Sometimes it's through Planning Act, sometimes it's just through a change in use. And the goal is always to try to manage those risks or eliminate those risks entirely, but where those risks cannot be, then those management steps. And so that's that conversation back and forth to ensure that all municipal drinking water areas and wells are protected at their source.
When you mentioned the 6, are those 6 ongoing in St. Mary's? Okay, thank you.
Further questions? I had a question. Last year, we talked a bit about asset management plan and where things are at. I just don't see anything alluded to in here, actually. And I'm just concerned because the capital increase is not very much. I know the Mayor of London has recently, finally, after 10 years of asking, taken interest in Upper Thames, actually, and has been quite successful in curbing the levy. But my concern is because, as Councillor Craig, when we talked about it last year, I don't see anything this year. We are faced with a situation where 2.5% of this year's budget is from external agencies, including yourself, before we start. And it's difficult to plan long-term. We talked about that last year. I don't see anything alluding to long-term capital management planning. In fact, I see a significant decrease in capital asset planning. I'm just concerned about the future because, you know, we've gone through, quite frankly, we've gone through a period where we had double-digit increases from the Upper Thames. And now there's something palatable because Josh Morgan has finally taken an interest in it. And I'm concerned about the future because, you know, we've had this conversation before. You know how difficult it is for us to do our financial long-range planning. But you know, and given there are a number of changes coming to the province that we have no influence over as well, I'm just concerned about going forward.
Yes, thank you for your concern, Mayor Strathy. Certainly when you look at Table 3 of the budget, that shows a projection for next year for some of those capital projects. It varies based on workload, based on what's been approved, what issues are arising to those priorities of capital work. We have been refining it further out to a 5-year plan, and that's something that was supplied to your staff as well. Exactly right. It is those long-term ones. And it was always our intention for the last couple of years to kind of bring our service level up to where it needed to be with the changes in legislation, and then to have a more manageable increases or decreases, whatever they happen to be, depending on the municipality, moving forward, and to have that stabilization. Asset management is a key part of that. I think everyone is having the same challenges when I've been out talking to municipalities. The assets that we have are older, but we have been embarking in that. We haven't been providing the 5-year plan in the budget, but that is something certainly that's been provided with your staff. And further refined as we do some of these projects. We've learned, for example, we've done a safety boom down at Fanshawe. At the large dam there, we had some good estimates from that project to then apply to future projects. It is a bit of a challenge when we're talking about this type of infrastructure. That isn't the type of work contractors are doing regularly. So having information to pull from is a bit of a challenge, but we are continuing to refine that asset management planning through information that we receive in our tenders and our bids.
Okay, for the record, this is year 12 for me. We've a 10-year capital asset plan predates me. The town's been working on a 10-year cycle. And it's just, well, I realize it's special, but the town also has specialized assets. And I just think, you know, we've talked about this year after year after year. I just think respectfully, it's not respective of the municipalities, because we need to plan out further than 5 years. And 1 year isn't enough. And we've seen large swings, and it makes it really, really difficult for us to budget, and frankly, it's unfair. This isn't the first time I've raised this. It's year after year after year. And again, I saw that there was 1 year, and you say that there's 5 year. Why couldn't you supply it to us?
Through the Mayor, absolutely. We can make sure that can happen. As well, with our final budget, we are proposing to include a 1-year forecast out too. So hopefully that gives some better indication to our municipalities, and you'll see that in the final version of the budget.
Thank you for that. Again, we operate on a 10-year capital forecast that is totally transparent and available to the public. I suggest that an agency that has a similar budget to ours is capable of doing the same. Further questions? Councillor Pridham.
Thank you. I was curious about your succession planning that you're doing, and you have these specialized, dams and things like that you need to train for, and I get that. What other areas are you planning for succession? Because it sounds to me like, just as listening through this, that you're maybe doubling up and hiring positions that are already filled, but having someone come in and train for that position. Is it office staff? Is it, what type of thing? Because I know within the town, we don't hire to double up our positions and pay that extra cost. So I just want a justification for that.
Yes, through the Mayor. To Councillor Pridham, one of the positions is for dam maintenance mechanic. That is to make sure, again, these are unique structures. It's not like you can walk in and know the jobs and know the functionalities of each different structure is, or each structure is very different, I should say. When it comes to the other corporate services, our head of finance, we want to make sure that there's adequate overlap. It's not a full-time, it's adding a few months of overlap to make sure that that senior position has someone to provide. And then that'll be gone after this time period. We recognize as well the significant amount of vacation time that individual has accrued, and want to make sure that we're hiring it early enough so that there can be some transition periods to cover that.
From what I read, it was planning for future retirement. So is there an actual retirement date, or is this kind of something that could carry over for years, or, you know, I just fiscally responsible in your hiring of people? I'd like to know that that's, you know, in your preview when you're doing these things.
Yes, there is a retirement date. I don't, for their own privacy, I wasn't going to provide the date, but there is a date that's set. So it is in the future. It is in 2026. So we want to make sure that we're accommodating for that.
Further questions? Councillor Craigmile?
Thank you, Worship. Tracy, can you maybe just give council a little bit of an explanation of the benefit-based structures and those levy costs and how WECI influences all of those? I think it's important that, because you never know when those WECI funds are going to, and I'll leave it with you.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Craigmile. Yeah, that's a great point of clarification to provide. And each structure that is benefit-based was derived during the construction process. So while the structures were constructed, it was determined who was going to be the main beneficiaries of having that structure in place over time, and that is the funding mechanism that has been distributed, and that is provided as well in the table in the package. Table 4, we have our regular distribution rates, but then the benefit-based amounts. So it's this end of the table up here, and in the title it shows that distribution. So there's those structures that are 100% benefit-based to a municipality, and then Wildwood and Piddock dams that are distributed by a different mechanism, again, based on the points of construction at the time. But with those structures, we are able to apply for the Water and Erosion Control Infrastructure Program. There is a $5 million pot throughout the province of Ontario that conservation authorities are eligible to apply to. Again, that is distributed based on the review of a committee and a number of priorities. So typically, given the size of the structures like Wildwood, the amount of property owners that are affected, those types of structures rate high on eligibility and the ranking. But it changes year over year. We can never predict how many other conservation authorities are going to be applying to that funding, and $5 million doesn't go a whole long way with the age of most infrastructure in the province. When it comes to flood control infrastructure, many of the structures were built after Hurricane Hazel in the mid to late 50s and early 60s. So it's not a lot of funding there. We do apply for it every chance we get, but depending on what other applications are in the mix and how those projects rank, we don't know necessarily the outcomes until after those decisions are made. So it is a challenge. I think we've been very successful in the past, but more and more that's going to be very challenging for all conservation authorities to manage these infrastructures. We do have a 20-year asset management plan, but we are refining those numbers right now based on what were current contracts and things that are out there. So that's something that's constantly updated. I can certainly provide that as well. It's posted on our website, but those numbers are continuously being refined.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? Okay, thank you for your presentation. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Tracy?
No, thank you for having me. I know there's still changes proposed, more legislation coming down the pipe to conservation authorities. Those changes aren't anticipated to be in effect until 2027 or after the municipal election. So 2026 is still status quo, and I guess my main concern with some of the changes proposed is the large area and geographic area that they're proposing for the conservation authorities to be amalgamated into the Lake Erie region. It's over 81 municipalities, and really having the local voice and local needs met. I don't know how that governance structure is going to work, so I would encourage you to comment on the environmental registry if there's concerns about that.
Thank you. So we'll probably see you next year, but we're not sure if you'll be smiling or not.
Yeah. I'm always smiling.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, so the suggested motion is that the delegation from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority regarding the proposed 2026 UTRCA budget be received. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Allward, second by Councillor Pridham. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. All right, next up we have a delegation from the St. Mary's Healthcare Foundation. We welcome Aaron Reynolds, who's the vice chair, Brian DeGroot, who's a board member, and Dr. Josh Burley. Welcome. You understand how the equipment works? Have you had a chance to talk to you? Okay, thank you. Just got to make sure the light's on.
Perfect. Okay. Good morning. Thank you for having us, Your Worship, council members, and staff as well. I just thought I'd give regrets from our chair, Amanda McCurdy. She wasn't able to make it. She wishes she could have been here, but she had a conflict with work. So she sends her regrets to everyone. In your package, you'll have received a request for $100,000 for the foundation in the 2026 budget. The vast majority of those funds go towards doctor recruitment and retention for the town and at Happy Valley, which we know also benefits the St. Mary's Memorial Hospital, because a lot of the doctors there do dual work at both Happy Valley as well as at the hospital. Happy Valley is currently looking for between 2 to 3 new doctors for town. We actually talked to the HPHA. We're in close relation with them. They tell us what the industry norms are for recruitment for doctors, and currently what other local municipalities are offering for doctor recruitment is $25,000 per doctor. So it's a way to help entice people to stay in town and do practice here. We're also trying to raise funds for our new X-ray machine. You might have seen that in the paper. We have raised just over $200,000, but the total cost is $650,000. And you'll see in your package, there's details on what the new X-ray machine offers. You'll see it's like less radiation, a heavier lift. The old X-ray machine was very much at end of life, and there's some statistics in your package as well about the downtime that the old machine had been experiencing. So it really was a necessity to get that new X-ray machine in town, and I think most of us have benefited from being able to go to Emerge here and then have X-rays done really quickly and locally. I am going to hand it over to Brian. He is the chair of our financial committee, so he can go into some of the details about how your money was spent this year in 2025.
Good morning. In your packages, you will see how the monies were spent last year. And just to recap that, Wellness Center subsidy was $50,000. Emergency room training, just $4,000. Hospital staff leadership training, almost $8,000. And as Aaron mentioned, we are currently looking at paying in initiatives for new doctors. There is one out there right now that is pending that we would be paying a $25,000 incentive for them to come. Dr. Burley will talk about the others. There's a couple more coming on board in our locum that will be practicing here shortly. that may be people that may consider St. Mary's as a place to be a doctor. And I'll hand it over to Dr. Burley.
Good morning, Your Worship, Council, and staff. My name is Dr. Josh Burley, and I'm one of the family physicians at Happy Valley Family Health Team. On behalf of myself and the rest of the family doctors, thank you so much for your ongoing support. As Aaron and Brian mentioned, the money the town contributes helps in a multitude of ways. One of these ways is bonuses for incoming family doctors. These are offered by other communities and are essential to help us stay competitive. There are other government programs to help recruit family doctors to rural communities, which pay between $85,000 and $125,000. Unfortunately, St. Mary's is a few kilometers too close to London, which makes new doctors not eligible for this funding pool. This makes these bonuses that we provide you provide even more helpful for recruitment. Right now we have 3 family doctors that have been either already doing some work with us or going to be coming in as locums that are trying out the area, and we're hoping that we can get some of them to stick around. Another way that the money has helped is through the simulation program that Brian mentioned. It was a 2-day simulation program run in the emergency room, running through some real life scenarios, and it was a rich learning experience, and everyone, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive from everyone involved. We are hopeful for your ongoing financial support to contribute to our mutual goal of meeting the healthcare needs in this thriving community.
Thanks. Yeah, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you all for coming. Any questions from council? Councilor Craigmile.
Thank you, Worship. I'm a very strong supporter of the hospital, the foundation. But I guess when I read this and you come for, we up from 50,000 to 75,000 last year, and then there seemed to be one piece of equipment in here, and as you heard in the last presentation, it's this whole asset management plan. If we knew what was going on for the next, potentially guessing for the next 5 years or something, so that we could make some plans. Because I guess a concern that we probably all have sitting at this table is that, are we going to see an ask for a donation to every piece of equipment needed over, say $100,000, without, so it becomes difficult in our budget process. I'm just throwing that out there to say, how can whatever you're doing predicting down the road help us out?
A very fair question. We do, and we can provide the 2 to 5 year plan, so we do have that information. This ask is only because of the fact of the cost of what the X-ray machine is. Like, it's a huge cost, and we're asking for a small amount. But they, being the HPHA, do provide us with a plan in terms of what equipment's going to be required over the next 5 years. This was the biggest piece of equipment. And probably at this point in time, they'd be the only ask at this point in time, as far as I know. There is no other large pieces of equipment that are going to be purchased that we would need to help with over the next 2 to 5 years, probably.
If I can just follow up on that then, because I don't know what rest of councils, where they're going to or later on or whatever. Your plan of paying off that $650,000 isn't in the next month, so it'll probably be still there 12 months from now.
And actually, we have a plan for that. So the 200, we've already paid 200,000 of it. All of our fundraising efforts for the next year will go towards that, which is approximately another $250,000. So any of our events, our gala, all that kind of stuff will all go toward 50-50. Everything is going towards the X-ray machine for the next year. The remaining portion of it is coming from our own funds. We have the money set aside for the rest of it then.
And if I can just follow up with my only other question was, I'm glad to hear that you're thinking that you might get 2 to 3 doctors. Are they new, or are they going to be replacing a retiree, or what's your?
Yeah, we are still recruiting to replace Dr. Thornton, who left now 3 years ago. And we do have an upcoming retirement this year that we're looking to recruit to replace as well.
That's a great answer, because, you know, we need two just to keep up with where we are. And you're hoping for another one to minimize the impact of, you know, the common complaint is residents don't have a local family doctor.
And then just to comment on your previous question, now this is my third year, I think, coming to talk to you guys. And the ask for was previously $50,000, and that hadn't been increased in years and years. So I know the last 2 years we've asked for an increase, but that's on a background of a kind of a stagnant ask for my understanding was for a long period of time.
Okay, anything further? Councilor Cridham?
Thank you, through your worship. I thought it was really interesting reading the benefits of the new X-ray machine, and maybe you've already put that out there to the public. I really am not sure, because I hadn't seen it. So for me, it was new information, and I don't know if putting an ask out there in the month of December and really highlighting the benefits might draw, maybe more interest in some of your fundraising.
Yeah, for sure. So we do try to work with the independent newspaper to get stories where we can. We have Bernice, who is one of our employees. She has a really strong social media background, so she also posts updates and stuff. But I agree, I think one of her focuses is really going to be to dig into some of those details and sort of tell people why it was so important. Yeah, it's not just a replacement, it's an improvement. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, anything further from council? All right, thank you all for taking your time to come. We appreciate it. We know you're all busy. Thank you very much for explaining, and we'll carry on our budget deliberations. We appreciate your time. Thank you. So the suggested motion is that the delegation from the St. Mary's Healthcare Foundation regarding the 2026 funding request be received. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Luna, second by Councillor Craigmile. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Next delegation is from the Station Gallery. We have Duncan McDonald with us. Duncan appeared before us last year when he was new and wet behind the ears, so we appreciate you coming again and just updating us on all the activities. And I'm understanding it's been a busy year.
Thank you very much, Mayor Strathby and councillors. Yes, very busy. Tuesday is my one day off of the week. But thank you for having me. I'll give you a sense of what's been happening. You have all of the information. I'm being fully transparent, so this speeds things up for everybody. It's been a busy year. Cameron actually fully kind of retired in, I think, June. And I've taken over fully of the space along with Maggie Richardson, helping me, assisting me a bit, as well as doing the excellent graphic design. Our attendance records have grown substantially, and part of that is through doing quite an online marketing campaign, a substantial social media, as well as totally changing our website and making it more functional and kind of streamlined and just more efficient. So by the end of this year, we will have had over 200,000 people engaging with our content online, which is an enormous jump. And about 80% of people said that how they found out about the shows was through online postings. So I believe I was told that when I submitted my proposal, there was no number attached to it. So kind of a creative way to do it, no? The idea here is status quo. I'm not asking for any more, not any less, but status quo. Even though the world is getting more expensive, if we can have the status quo, that would be wonderful. So there have been a few things that I've done to try to streamline things, including reducing some of the paper publishing and doing more online, just to keep some costs down. The big thing that's been happening this year has been, of course, art education, and it's been a very busy one. I've been doing between 4 to 7 art classes since January 2nd of this year. And I have adults and I have children who are coming to different classes, and there is now a structure. At the beginning, it was kind of a shotgun approach. Just do as much as possible and see what kind of sticks. And now there is a routine and there's structure, and I'm understanding what the interest is from locals. You'll also notice we have people coming in from beyond St. Mary's, like Thorndale, Kintyre, even London and Stratford and beyond, weekly to these classes. These people are also coming to town. They're shopping here. They're going to different stores, with, like, dropping off their kids, they're shopping, but also buying art supplies and even groceries here. I would also say an interesting thing I've noticed from the Station Gallery is that it's a little bit of a tourist bureau as well. So during the summer months, I interacted with many people, actually from all over the world, South Africa, UK, a bunch of Americans, like as Cameron experienced. I don't think the same numbers per se, but so Saturdays and Sundays we've been open. So I've been answering questions about where to go and where to explore in this beautiful town. Yeah. Now, one thing I wanted to come back to with the art education over quickly is the fact that it's been busy, fulfilling, and rewarding in many ways. I just wanted to note that Maggie's probably volunteering about 20 hours a month beyond what is given to her in this little stipend, which is chopped up. And I'm doing at least 120 hours a month volunteer. So this is obviously a labor of love. I'm not becoming a millionaire, that's for sure, doing this, but I think this is extremely important. I did give an appendix at the end of the report and most of the people were fine with having their name on that appendix to say what it means to them, the art education. I think there was only one parent who just, I think maybe the kid didn't want to say, hey, this is my name. So I even have more of them that have kind of come in recently. But what I've learned from this, this feedback from parents is a couple of things. One of the things is there's a little bit of a lack of funding in the public school system for art and the arts in general. This happens, of course, and this is at no fault of any art teacher. This is the way the world is right now. A lot of the parents are sending kids to some of these classes to kind of bolster their knowledge and their passion for art. And as the kids say, I don't have enough time for art in school, and I'm rushed, and I don't get enough. These kids are sitting down, working between 2 and some of them for 3 hours, and they're focusing and they're doing something they love. And they're moving away from screens. They're doing something that's quite healthy for mental health and development. So the art education side of things has been extremely rewarding. It's very intense, but it's wonderful. Community engagement, you'll notice that there'll be a bunch of articles in the independent paper. We're creating content. Dan Welcher, myself, we may get another writer involved. We want to make sure people understand what we're doing and that we're relevant and that we're not just living in a bubble or in an island of sorts. Beyond that, I did have a brief response to the report by Angela Braham. My response to that, I think, is, with the Station Gallery, is that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, basically. And it seems to be in line with your thoughts in terms of moving into a different direction, so we don't need to get into that. Volunteers, something that we need to bolster right now because we have aging volunteers who I have not been relying on too much in the past few weeks or a couple months. Winter months are here. It's a harder time for some people who are elderly to physically even get to the space. So this is going to be a bit of a priority for me to get some younger blood, so to speak, involved with volunteering. We've had some engagement with the Poetry Circle. We also had an exhibition with 2 schools, the Little Fall and Centennial, of children's work. So we're doing a bit of everything. That's why I look tired. Stewardship, I just wanted to put this in because I think this is kind of useful. I'm there a whole lot, right? So I'm noticing when things are happening with the building, right? And I just wanted to bring that up because that's something that, a $20,000 roof repair, it can be kind of prevented by watching and really taking care of the building. And I've been communicating with Ray Cuisinot, and I'm very cognizant of that because we have access to this space and we feel very lucky to have that, very privileged. So part of what we do is we take care and we monitor that space. So you're not paying $20,000 because all you have to do is chop down one branch kind of thing. Beyond that, the key numbers, status quo, status quo. There's a modest income that I've been able to eke out from art education. This has been a bit of an experimental year. It's going well. I think it'll go a little bit better next year now that I understand when baseball happens, now that I understand when Ring Ed happens and all these kinds of things within the community and work around them. And to be extremely clear, none of this would have happened without the support of your worship and council. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for your presentation. Questions from council? Councilor Howard? Yeah.
Thanks, Your Worship. Duncan, I was curious, and I'm very impressed by your online engagement and how much that's increased, and even you can see that in your visitors per show. And then just kind of later on with that sort of if it ain't broke, don't fix it comment and the discussion around fundraising, campaigning, and potential naming rights or changing the name or whatever. I guess, is it your perspective in the current state that there's kind of a St. Mary's Station Gallery brand to be preserved there with what you have online now, or what's your view on that?
It requires a little bit more analysis, but it seems like keeping the brand kind of makes sense. We've looked at a bunch of these things, you know, the name change and the fundraising in progress, but my intuition is it's staying probably as is. It was a creative endeavor, and part of it was accessing a network of donors and this and that related to the former director. However, even the logistics, even just the cost of changing the stationery, changing the signs, changing everything, like, we don't have that money. It's kind of silly. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, really. Yeah. But fundraising is, I've had conversation with fundraisers. I've been looking myself, I've done some of this kind of work in the past. I'm at this kind of, you know, place right now where I talked about in a business plan last year about looking at the not-for-profit model. It's kind of an order of operations I'm doing. This is the next step, but I'm just a couple of months behind because Cameron finished in June. Yeah.
Councilor Pridham?
Thank you, through your worship. Really just a comment that I enjoyed reading your information there, and I congratulate you on the work and what you've achieved so far, and it's very good. Thank you.
Councilor Craig Mile?
Thank you, Worship. Duncan, thank you for your presentation. It's always good to learn what's going on. And during your discussion, I couldn't help but think Councilor Alward's the one you probably want to talk to. But I'm just thinking of, we're constantly doing things and it's turned out really good, some art downtown and doing different things. And I just wonder if maybe Councilor Alward should take it to the BIA and maybe there's something you can get your students or whatever working on and doing it. You know, it's done in St. Mary's, Fort St. Mary's or something like that. I just think it's an idea that it'd be very worthwhile.
Yeah, I think I'm open to those possibilities, absolutely. And there are many different models. Several years ago, I think you guys did like a Nuit Blanche kind of thing, right? Which is, you know, Andrea, I think, did this. And it's a model that comes from France. I did a few of them in France, and you get 6 million people in the middle of Paris when you do Nuit Blanche. But it's a great model, like you 24 hours through the night and you do work. I'm open to having these discussions. The thing that comes down is to actually having a bit of a budget for it. We just have, one of the things that I would suggest to the whole world is that art is work, right? It's whether you're a mechanic, you're a nurse, whatever, it's work, and people have to be paid for their work. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any further? Councilor Alward?
Thanks, Your Worship. I will just follow up with a comment. I've actually had probably 3 ideas since you've just said that, Jimmy, so I'll bring that up. Thanks.
Okay, anything further? Okay, thank you for your presentation this morning. We much appreciate the work that you're doing in St. Mary's. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, so the suggested motion is that the delegation from Duncan McDonald regarding the 2025 review operations for the Station Gallery be received. So I'm going to move that motion. Moved by Councilor Pridham, second by Councilor Craigmile. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. All right, next up we have Scott Crawford from the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. Mr. Crawford, please.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor Strathy and Council. Thanks for having me on today. I'm just here to talk about two items. One mainly is this field at the cement company field. It's the premier field at the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame in the town of St. Mary's. It's the only regulation-sized ball field in St. Mary's, which means basically the 400-foot fence and the 300-foot lines and the real mounded infield grass. So it's the only size field here in town. It was built in 1998 by John Harleton, Brad Gregus, and some volunteers. So it's our oldest field and been around the longest. It's had a few repairs lately done. We redid the infield just this year to make it look better. And we redid the backstop in 2021. It was supported by the Jays Care Foundation back then. So we were able to secure the money to repair the backstop. What we're looking at now is the fence around the field. Again, this fence was installed in 1998, so it's well used. It doesn't look great. There's parts that are falling down that we've tried to fix, but really they're just repair jobs that don't work very well. So it's the field that's used by St. Mary's Minor Ball mostly, but also hosts a lot of our out-of-town premier games. From the Canadian Premier Baseball League, the inter-county teams, Hamilton Old Timers, the London Men's League. We've held provincial tournaments there as well. Basically, anyone ages 14 and up use this field. So it's a very well-used ball field. And so we're looking to get the fence fixed in 2026. And I think it'll really just help the field. We've done the infield, we've done the backstop, the dugouts are great, but the fencing doesn't look great at all. And so we're really hoping to get the fence repaired this year, or 2026, sorry. We're getting requests. I got an email today about the Canadian Premier Baseball League is considering using the field for their Perfect Game tournament next summer. So again, that will bring lots of high quality baseball into the town of St. Mary's that would use that field only because again, it's ages 14 and up use that ball field. So we're really trying to finish off the aspect of the fencing, which is what people see when they walk up to the ball field. If you want to look at fields such as like Woodstock, in smaller towns, Woodstock and Dorchester have beautiful ball fields that are well used by a lot of high quality people, plus their minor league teams, minor ball teams. Bigger city, of course, London. I know that's London, a much bigger city, but also Exeter and Mitchell have nice fields as well that we're trying to just make ours even better than theirs because it's the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame in St. Mary's. So it's really a drawing card for the town. That's basically my talk about the fence. I provide a lot of pictures and quotes. It's hard to see in some of the pictures. It's much easier if you walk around the field and take a look at it. You can see, but obviously I took the pictures to help it make it a little easier to see. And so there's that. And then also the site assessment at the Hall of Fame. It's never been done. We've started partnering with Stephanie and her department a lot more this summer. They've helped us look after the site somewhat. And it's one thing that was sort of suggested that like the site should be looked at from the tractor to the lawnmower to the fence. A good example, I guess. The fence, the light posts, the dugouts, the irrigation in the ground, like everything's there. It's all been there for a long time, but no one knows the condition of it. So that was sort of the second request. I know Stephanie touched on it in her report in one of her reports. But it would also include the museum aspect or the museum building as well, since it's on the site that the town owns. So that's sort of the second aspect of the request that's in your hands. That's it. I didn't have a very long presentation. I just wanted to sort of show you the highlights. I know you have the information in front of you as well. So any questions or comments?
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Questions from council? Councilor Craigmont?
Thank you, Worship. When we first went through the capital projects, both these were in there.
Yes.
So the condition assessment is in our capital budget, proposed to be split 50-50. The fencing project is not in our capital budget. So under the operations and maintenance agreement, the way it works is the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame has the right to bring forward any capital requests every year, and then council has a sole discretion to determine at what level you wish to fund it at. So again, it would be a change to the budget if you decide to add any funding.
So we can review that just asked for lists, everything that's presented to you at the time. I'll maybe defer to the CEO just for an update when we come.
Yes, when we get to the report, I'll make note of the requests that don't have budget dollars attached to them that you've heard from today.
Okay. Yeah, Councilor Craigmile?
Okay, so then, if I can follow up on that then. So these estimates, you did say they're still valid because they are over a year old.
Yeah, I talked to Fortress Fencing in Dillon, and he said those, I sent him those quotes. I said, are these still good? And he said yes. So.
And did we get more than one original quote?
Not for this project. These are the people we used for to do Kingfield back a decade ago. They've been our fence guy for the last while, and they're also the people the town worked with to do to fix up Teddy's Field last year or the year before when they did some work at Teddy's Field. So,
Okay. Further questions? Okay, thank you. We will discuss this down the road here.
thank you very much.
So the suggested motion is that the delegation from the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame regarding the 2026 funding request be received. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Luna, second by Councillor Craigmile. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Next up, we have Cole and Sarah from the library. Thank you for coming this morning.
Good morning, Council. Good morning, Mayor Strathdee. On behalf of the Library Board, Dr. Cole Atlin and I are here to speak to any questions you have regarding the library and adult learning budgets. As you saw in your binder, we heard the request to please come in with a budget that was under the 4% target. The Library Board has done that. We are really coming to you this morning with a status quo budget, meaning there are no additional staffing hours requested in this budget. There are no new programs and services that we're looking to fund. We're just looking to maintain the good services that we provide the community from 2025 moving forward. I did want to share that ever since we've reopened the rental use of our rooms at the library following Town Hall's renovation, we've noticed a real uptake this fall with requests from community groups in St. Mary's and beyond to use our spaces. And it is a regular occurrence right now at the library to come in and see both the large meeting room and the adult learning classroom and the makerspace being used by CMHA, by the Law Society of Ontario, by a homework club that's an external group. It's really hard to find space. So I wanted to share that with you as we look down the road towards the planning of potential opportunities at 14 Church. It just seems like all of a sudden it's a very acute situation where there is recognition that there's space at the library and it's being used. Do you have any questions regarding the budget that I know you had an opportunity to ask some at the last budget presentation, but in case you had any more today, we're here to address them.
Thank you. We briefly went through the budget before, and there was some highlights. Are there any questions with regards to the library budget? I guess the only question, and you know, we ask it every time, is about adult learning and provincial funding and whether we have any sense. And I know that's a tough question, but every year it seems a lot of uncertainty. So I thought I'd ask it about future demand and where we're at with adult learning.
So we met for the first time with our new rep from the ministry in the fall, early fall. He is our fourth or fifth since I became the library CEO. He's new to his portfolio. And every time we meet with our representative, we highlight the realities of trying to do planning for this program and to at least confirm we have the existing funding and to ask for additional funding. And we don't seem to get very far. They don't seem to know enough about what the long-term planning is in their department to be able to provide any information other than to say at the moment they can somewhat confirm that funding will be in place for the future. But having said that, they also don't give any sense that it's at risk. They just don't know. So we communicate that we're going to assume it's coming, that it's a really important program, especially now that that program isn't just for preparation for moving on with another choice like post-secondary or a career or doing a placement in with an employer, but we also do that really basic literacy where we support individuals in our community in Perth County who are learning to read. And I think you would be shocked at how many times we actually go back to that basic skill set with our instructors and start from there. There are a concerning number of people in St. Mary's and in Perth County who have just sort of been lost to the formal education system, and this program gets them back into the loop to accomplish some of their academic goals. So we feel it's incredibly important, and we continue to make that argument with the ministry. And we just keep planning that we're going to continue to have this program as it exists now. And our outreach into the county is going very well. We've been using, I think I've mentioned this to you before, but I'll remind you that we're reaching out through the libraries in Perth County to make sure that all of Perth County has an opportunity to connect with our instructors. So they visit each of the 5 libraries and have time to meet with learners, to at least do some one-on-one FaceTime and get them set working on their curriculum, and then keep in touch with them virtually to make sure they're accomplishing their goals. And they travel to those libraries to be physically present. So it's meant that our mileage reimbursement has been important. So we've done some jigging with some of the numbers, trying to every year just make that money go further and further.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Hallward.
Thanks, Your Worship. Sarah, I believe we discussed the number maybe a few library board meetings ago, and our subcommittee meeting is next week, I think, for adult learning. But I was curious if you know off the top of your head where we're at with our learners' targets right now.
We've done all right. We haven't had any business.
Microphone.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Councillor Elward. Through the mayor, we've done all right with our numbers, but we are still seeking those employers, a couple of employers who'd like us to come in and do some work with a group of employees. That really helps to boost our numbers because we've mostly been relying on one-on-one learning, and we are a little behind. So we had a great interview with the newspaper last week. It should be in this week's newspaper, just sharing the word of the program. People are still shocked that this service is free to them. So, and they don't really grasp the whole depth and width of the programming we offer. And you'll see that they're also offering some tech support in the paper right now, some one-on-one in-person sessions. The last one we ran this fall at the PRC, we had 17 people. And those, the curriculum of that course was protecting yourself online, not falling victim to some of the scams that are out right now, understanding when you get an email how to tell if it's legitimate or not, safeguards around communicating out your personal information. So it's very, very valuable content, and we're offering it again. So they do that one-on-one time with a learner, and they do a wide range of curriculum, but then they also do these sessions, pop-ups for tech support, and we're really looking for those employers. So if you have any ideas about employers we can approach that may not be the ones we've already approached, that would be great to hear.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Craigmile.
Thank you, Worship. So Sarah, when I look at revenue from municipalities, that's maybe Stratford, is it not? Or is it other municipalities? for adult learning?
We do receive some money from Stratford. We also receive money from the ministry.
Yeah, and that was kind of my question. So if we're traveling around Perth County, we have extra mileage, and have we approached these other municipalities or Perth County for help? I mean, especially if we're doing employers, unless there's just a carte blanche charge. If you're doing an employer in Seaforth or something, versus, I understand if it's tax levy dollars and it's, when it's not revenue neutral, it's coming out of St. Mary's. I guess that's my question, is how we,
Through the mayor to Councillor Craigmile, that's actually a very insightful perspective, since we haven't really traveled that far for employers at this point. I think it's something we could consider as we're negotiating with an employer, that perhaps we ask them to cover some of the cost of mileage. Is that what you're asking?
yeah, it probably is, and probably maybe it's because when I hear going to employers in Perth County, I'm wondering, if you would have said that currently we're working for employers, but only in St. Mary's, then I wouldn't have asked the question.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, just keep pushing. So just to clarify, on behalf of that comment through the mayor, this is the program of, adult learning program of Perth. So it is intended to serve the entire community. It's just that it's existed in St. Mary's, and we've always maintained formally a spot in Stratford, but really the program is to serve the whole county. So when they support learners in Listowel or in Mitchell, it is the mandate of the program and the mandate of the funding from the ministry. However, this sort of workout to employers is something we've sort of, it's within the boundaries of the work, but it's sort of a new angle to reach multiple learners at the same time. So I can definitely consider that as we reach out to employers.
I'm just going to add, historically, there used to be an office in Listowel, and that funding dried up from the Listowel service. So that was probably about 15 plus years ago. So there's been a hole but we also have part of the funding from Stratford comes from the social services budget. So it's sort of in that way to supply broader is in part of the intention, and we've been continually asking for more money from that line item from when we go to Stratford to ask. But the good thing on the Stratford side is, even though we haven't really been getting a huge amount more money, is that we don't have to go regularly ask. We are assumed to be part of their budget now, and we have been for the past 5 or 6 years. So that's positive that we are now integrated into their social services line item that is funding, and we do continually ask for an increase, and we provide reasoning, and we find different ways that we can try and maximize service, as there are very low margins on this program, right? So you're trying to constantly go, okay, how can I get this, that, or the other? But that is at least one thing I think that's been really positive in the upending of all of the funding potentially that can ever happen with this program, and that we've made that happen. And they said, yeah, you guys are in the budget now. This is a program we really support. So I do think that servicing those communities is also probably beneficial to St. Mary's, because we do tend to bring people into work here. So it's not, if we were only servicing St. Mary's residents, we wouldn't be necessarily servicing the people that work in our plants, work in our facilities, things like that, right? So there is, as much as we are an independent single-tier municipality, which I do actually love about us, and I appreciate that you guys work so hard to keep that, that we keep going in that way, we do have still these interconnections with other places in the county that this can support in a very marginal way. We're not talking, I don't think you guys are going out like on a super regular basis, right? It's occasionally, and then you hopefully get people to draw in and come to the Stratford location or come to the St. Mary's location for those services. But you got to get them in to begin with.
Thanks for your answer. And as I keep thinking about it, listening to your answer, it's probably important that we're servicing Perth County, because that's probably a very positive for continued grants.
100%, 100%.
Okay, thank you for that question. Any further questions from council? Okay, anything you want to add for council?
Just wanted to thank you guys also for all the opportunities that will hopefully be forthcoming on Fort Jean Church as you guys make deliberations on that. We've been starting to have conversations and doing work on the library side to hopefully move towards fundraising support opportunities. We've been talking about it on the board internally, and that we're what's the date of the meeting?
November 27th is the meeting at the library to launch the capital campaign committee. It's at 6:30 p.m. We have been actively advertising in the newspaper, released a press release yesterday that will be in this coming newspaper. We did an interview with The Independent last week. We are also happy to reach out to anyone you suggest might be interested in the capital campaign, because we do really want the community to get behind this project and demonstrate that they understand it's a value to the town. So if you have any suggestions for the committee or people you'd like me to reach out to on behalf of the committee, please just send me an email and recommend them, and we'll give them a personal invite as well to participate and help us make this a reality.
We're already getting, I was talking to someone last night and suggesting to them that they attend, and they said, well, I don't know if I support that project. And I said, well, the anchor tenant will hopefully be the library. And they went, oh, you guys are running out of space. I said, so any fundraising, it'll benefit that building, but it'll also really benefit the library. And they said, oh yeah, I would be interested in. And so there's some real dialogues that are happening in town that I think that this capital campaign committee will have a really important role in having, because I know that you guys are probably having some of these similar conversations. But because, as the rec master plan indicated, as casual conversations have indicated, and as Sarah so rightly pointed out, we're running out of space. We know that. We've known that for a long time. And so people know that too in the community. And I think if we have that conversation, we have those open discussions, I think we're going to have some success with it. But we do really want, and I don't know if anybody's listening on this, but we do really want people to come out and join the capital campaign committee. It will have library board representation, but we really want it to be a community-based, people coming in and being like, hey, I want to fundraise, I want to get out there. So we're looking actively for recruitment.
And we'd really like to keep the impact on the tax bases low as we can.
Yeah.
So it's a good solution to that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both for attending today.
Thank you, and thank you for your continued support of our lovely library.
Okay, so the suggested motion of the delegation from the St. Mary's Public Library regarding the proposed budget for 2026 be received. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Pridham, seconded by Councillor Luna. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, the next delegation, mobility bus, they're here on remotely. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning, Bob and Amber. You can both hear me? Okay.
Hi there.
Hi. The floor is yours. I'm assuming Amber's going to give the presentation.
Yes, I will. Now, do we have the PowerPoint that I sent? Are we able to put that up?
Yeah, just 1 second. Jenna's just working on that. Okay.
Thanks.
There we go, Amber, it's up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I will jump in right away. I'll just let you know when it's time to flip to the next slide. So good morning, Mayor and Council, and those others that are on the call. Thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Amber Miners. I'm the manager of St. Mary's and Area Mobility Service. It's a small but deeply committed nonprofit that provides accessible door-to-door transportation for residents who otherwise have no way to get to their appointments and activities that matter. Every ride we provide represents independence, dignity, and connection. Next slide, please. Okay, so many of you have probably seen our vehicles around town. I mean, it's zipping up and down every day, or maybe know someone personally who has used our services. For some, this might be the first introduction to who we are. So I'm excited to talk to you today about the impact that we're making in the community. We manage 4 agency vehicles. They are each driven by trained staff, and we coordinate a volunteer-driven program where members of the community use their vehicles and help get people where they need to go. Typically, these are our ambulatory clients. Though our schedule is based on demand, we operate a vehicle 5 days a week and more when necessary, which is quite common. At times, we have all 4 vehicles on the road. The schedule remains flexible and fluid, so we're always kind of playing with it. I always call it, it's like a game of Tetris, if anyone's ever loved that game, you know, when you get a straight line, it's perfect, and then one day you get one of those wonky Z blocks and you kind of got to figure it out, but that's part of what makes us unique. Our services cover the full range of daily needs, medical appointments, grocery, pharmacy trips. This can also include errands and other essential services, community and social events. And then we also have a long-standing partnership with the VON Adult Day program, where we provide transportation to the site in St. Mary's as well as to the site in Stratford. Our mission is simple: to keep people connected to medical care, community life, and the everyday tasks that most of us take for granted. Next slide, please. So my enthusiasm for this service is something I wear proudly. What we do is unlike anything else. We have the privilege of supporting people in their journey and providing care right when we need it. And you can see that just based on our numbers. So in the 24-25 year, we provide 13,971 rides. This was to over 250 unique clients. Within that, we show our volunteer trips, 2,223, and then their hours contributed. So in total, our team drove enough kilometers to circle around the globe. So St. Mary's to Tokyo and back, once around the planet, totaling 77,934 kilometers in total. To highlight just how vital the service is, over 60% of these rides were for medical or essential appointments. What's important is not just the numbers themselves, but what they represent. People staying healthy, staying connected, and staying in their homes longer. These numbers reflect the volume and the need and the central role that we play each day. Next slide, please. So one initiative I'm especially happy to highlight is the partnership that we've recently started with the local and their community Nourish Market. So by offering rides to the market, we're helping residents access fresh, healthy foods, something that can be challenging without reliable transportation. And it's more than just nutrition. I want to emphasize that our services is not simply transportation, it's a lifeline. For many of our clients, they do not drive. They maybe can't afford private transportation. They may have mobility challenges where public transportation, when it is available, is inaccessible to them personally. They may live alone and rely on these rides to maintain independence, and without us, many of these residents would miss medical appointments and be unable to access groceries and experience increased social isolation. So even though our demographics may be defined by our funders, we're committed to being as inclusive as possible. Access to transportation is essential for the overall well-being. So when people have reliable rides, they can keep up with preventative care, maintain good nutrition, and remain socially engaged. All of these help reduce hospitalizations, emergency responses, and long-term care needs. So for many clients, having transportation they can rely on means more than mobility. It means dignity. It allows them to make decisions keeping commitments, and participate in the activities that shape their identity. That sense of control fosters both independence and confidence in such a powerful way. Next slide, please. So while we are proud of the work we do, our sustainability is increasingly at risk, and we do face three major challenges. You've heard me talk about how the transportation supports independence and confidence, helping clients maintain daily routines and be informed in their own choices, but none of this is possible without reliable vehicles. So in Ontario, community transport fleets typically keep accessible vehicles for about 8 to 10 years. The lifts and ramps are typically 5 to 15, depending on the maintenance, ensuring that everything is safe and dependable. Right now, we have 2 out of our 4 vehicles that have reached the 10-year mark, which is the upper expected lifespan. One of these in particular has become a significant challenge to our budget. Repairs for this bus are now costing more than twice the overall budgeted amount. And during this maintenance, we face downtime that affects our ability to provide timely rides. So this isn't just an operational issue, it directly impacts our clients' ability to maintain appointments, access nutritional food, and stay socially engaged. We do have contracts with local taxi companies, which allows us to contract certain rides when our capacity is reached. Typically, we try and save these for last minute calls, which we do kind of get a very quick turnaround, and we're able to use that partnership. But when looking at the 24-25 units, over 200 rides were given to these providers in that course of that year. So I think what that also shows is that there's a room for growth and an opportunity to show that our capacity can be have an increased reach. So while on rural roads, our drivers expect the unexpected, cows, tractors, and a few extra minutes. All in all, our team handles it with pride. However, what this means for St. Mary's Mobility is that our coverage is really broad. So there are times that clients get stuck in the middle, too far for us, and depending on certain guidelines, too far for other providers in the same area. So with proper support, we can keep these clients connected and make sure distance doesn't become a barrier to care or independence. Next slide, please. So what makes this service special isn't just getting people from point A to point B. It's how we care for them along the way. So I'm going to share 3 just quick client stories with you. So one of our clients' son shared how life changed almost overnight as he stepped into an intense caregiving role. His father's health unexpectedly declined, and with that, a call put everything into motion. Once he got connected with Central Intake, he found out about our transportation, and we were able to support him with support his father with frequent medical trips to and from. So what quickly became Joe's biggest challenge of trying to balance work, family demands, and caregiving, there was a resolution for him. So reliable rides, mobility assistance, and real-time updates meant Joe could keep his job, meet his children's needs while knowing his father was safe and supported. So our transportation service gave both of them peace of mind. Sarah lives with a chronic autoimmune condition that limits her mobility. After her husband suddenly passed away, she was left raising a young family in a rural home. She could no longer manage. Without her spouse to drive her to work on her bad days or to her medical appointments, she became increasingly isolated. Our service ensured that she could attend her twice weekly medical appointments, as well as do the hours of work that she was able to maintain. We were later, based on this relationship and the support that we provided to this client, we were later asked to write a letter of support outlining the challenges that she faced living rurally and her dependence on accessible transportation for safety and well-being. And Maria, so Maria lives alone. She lost her license 2 years ago after a fall. So she told us that without our service, she would miss all of her medical appointments. Taxis are just too expensive for her. And her family lives out of town. So what started to her feeling like she didn't have anywhere to turn, she all of a sudden was able to feel independent again. And the prospect of living in her home was once again an option. So this is what your support sustains, a service that keeps people cared for, connected, and confident in their daily lives. Next slide, please. As a small nonprofit organization, we take financial transparency very seriously. So every dollar entrusted to us is carefully managed to maximize the impact on the people that we serve. We have multiple revenue streams, including grants, donations, and client ridership fees. We make sure these are tracked and reported clearly, and our financial statements are reviewed both internally and externally on a regular basis. We tie our spending directly to outcomes, and every investment supports our mission by helping provide rides, reach more clients, and maintain a reliable and safe service. Next slide, please. So as you know, our services play a critical role in connecting residents to essential programs and supporting their well-being. Despite our efforts, demand continues to grow and more residents need reliable transportation to access healthcare and community programs and just daily services. So in this time, we are requesting a one-time capital investment of $25,000 from the gas tax reserve to replace an aging accessible vehicle. It is our intention that this vehicle will serve the community reliably for the next 8 to 10 years. We will be undergoing a vigorous fundraising effort to try and raise the funds to get this vehicle, hopefully to support our 26-27 year. We have been in touch with getting some quotes and getting some ideas on hand to know where our investment needs to go next. But this investment is more than just a vehicle. It's an investment in accessibility and community connection. Next slide, please. So we've talked about the urgent need to replace a vehicle, which is a critical capital investment. While this funding addresses our capacity concerns, it's only part of the picture. To keep our service running day to day, we also rely on operational funding. So this funding allows us to cover the essentials, staffing, fuel, vehicle upkeep, and our scheduling and IT systems that keep everything running smoothly. So beyond that enables us to expand our reach, recruiting and training more volunteers, strengthening partnerships that connect us to even more residents and to the transportation that they need. So in other words, the capital funding gives us the tools we need, and operational funding ensures that these tools can continue to serve our clients effectively every single day. And with that, we request our annual operational funding at $130,000. Next slide, please. So a modest investment from the town of St. Mary's will provide us with the predictability we need to plan responsibly and ensure service continuity. Your impact or your support will strengthen a service that supports some of our community's most vulnerable residents. It will reduce pressure on caregivers and local health services. It will increase community participation and social connection, and it will allow for the ability for people to age in place with dignity. This is not just a transportation program. It is an investment in community health, accessibility, and equity. We hope you will partner with us in this effort to keep our community moving and thriving. Last slide, please. So thank you so much for your time and considering our request. Before I turn it over for questions, I just want to leave you with the final note that our organization may be small, but it sure is mighty. Our impact that we have on people's lives is immeasurable. Together, we do keep the community moving, and we do thank you for considering our support in these efforts. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Amber. Bob, is there anything you wanted to add to the presentation?
No, I guess our main focus is to keep the operation running and make it as efficient as possible.
Okay, thank you. Bob serves as chair of the board, just for those of you that weren't familiar. So, okay, thank you very much. Any questions from council? Councilor Craigmile.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think typically when we're not involved directly with Amber and Bob, sometimes we get confused a lot because we've got money coming in that goes into a fund that we maneuver, which also includes Thames Center, I think, and Zora. and then you're asking for funds, and so I'm just trying to, that $130,000 operation comes out of those funds, which is already there, but your $25,000 ask towards a new vehicle, that would either have to come from town reserves or levy, or
Maybe.
gas tax?
Yeah, that money comes from the gas taxes of provincial,
That's provincial money, which is
in reserve.
in reserve, which is the town's gas tax, is not, or is that the other gas tax that comes from, or the other? areas
Provincial
too?
gas tax. I don't know if Spencer's still on the line, Brent. can you
Yeah,
clarify
it's-
that, please, yeah?
We fund it from our provincial gas tax allocation, but Spencer can speak to the contributions of the other municipalities as well.
So my understanding is that the other contributions from the municipalities go directly to St. Mary's Mobility. We receive the provincial gas tax on behalf of the other municipalities. And then when specific requests come from St. Mary's Mobility, we do direct transfers to St. Mary's Mobility. In terms of the budget, just to clarify for Councillor Craig Mile, their ask is $130,000. However, there is a reserve transfer from the provincial gas tax funds of $110,000. So there is a levy impact to the town of St. Mary's to the tune of approximately $20,000. Just wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Can I just also add something
Yeah,
as well?
for sure,
to that,
Amber, yeah.
please? So we do, the gas tax, the individual funds that we receive from Thames Center and Zora are grants actually, and per south. So I think the gas tax sum that we get is it combined. And then we receive individual grants on top of that from each municipality.
Okay. Further questions? Councillor Craigmile?
But those individual grants from each municipality, they don't go into a gas tax reserve, would they?
They go into operations, I believe.
Into operations.
Yep.
So would the 20,000 come out of, there?
No, maybe I'll defer to Spencer again, but my understanding is that $20,000 is our share to keep this, the service operating. That's what it costs the town of St. Mary's, $20,000. Okay, and included in that is a small amount for rent and costs, although we've been negotiating a new one that, sorry, Spencer, do you mind clarifying that?
Yeah, through your worship, that's correct. So the St. Mary's portion of the operations is $20,000. They request 130, we pull 110 from the reserve, and then that leaves a net impact of $20,000.
And to answer another part of your question, if I can, years ago, I went through the treasurer, with the treasurer, when we first started this process of trying to separate departments and costs and so forth. The amount from the gas tax has never really been quantifiable but we apply as a group. So long story short, I'll say that's our best way to sustain the service. Okay, it's similar to the other comment you had before with the library and the adult reading. Same type of deal, in my opinion, for this. Okay? Yeah. Further questions? Okay, so again, we can ask for further discussion and clarification with regards to this when we get into the budget requests from today further on the agenda, if there are specific questions about funding and so forth. Okay? Anything further with regards to this presentation? Okay, thank you both for your time. Is there anything else you wanted to add that we missed?
No, we
Okay.
appreciate your support.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time to come today. So the suggested motion would be that the delegation from the St. Mary's and Area Mobility Service regarding the proposed budget for 2026 be received. So I'm willing to move that motion. Moved by Councillor Luna, second by Councillor Edney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, so why don't we take a brief break if we're okay, sort of 10 minutes. Okay, we'll start again at 5 after 11. Thank you. Okay, we'll re-adjourn or we'll resume if we can, actually. So the next item is 7.1 with regards to the consolidated fee bylaw. And maybe just ask Spencer if he could lead us through the report, please.
Thank you, through your worship. Each year, staff undertake a comprehensive review of the town's fees and charges as part of the budget process. This review was guided by our cost recovery framework, which helps to ensure a fair balance between user fees and tax-supported services. The overarching goal is to essentially make sure that the costs for services are recovered appropriately. Consideration was also given to inflationary impacts, departmental budget needs, comparisons with neighboring municipalities, and impacts on our users. The proposed changes have been included in the mayor's draft 2026 budget and are detailed in the attached fee schedule with comparisons to 2025 rates as applicable. Note any of those proposed changes have been highlighted for ease of reference. I'm now happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions with regards to the fee structure and consolidated fee bylaw? It was included in your budget package. Councillor Luna?
Thank you, Worship. Spencer, I'm seeing a lot of, for the 2026 fee, a lot of removed. Like, so we're not charging those fees anymore? What does that mean?
We may defer to the specific managers of the departments, but my understanding is some of those have been consolidated. Specifically, if you look at aquatics, you'll see that the different types of passes have been consolidated into one general admission, as well as one pass for the season. But if there's anything specifically you're referring to, I may have to defer to the manager. But for the most part, it looks like they've been consolidated. So on Schedule A, Recreation and Leisure, Recreation and Leisure related to the birthday party. A number of those have been removed because they're referenced in regards to aquatics and the ice rentals. But again,
Just move to another.
They consolidated.
Okay.
Okay.
But if there's anything specifically you'd like discussed, I'm sure the manager or director would be happy to answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions with regards to fees? If nothing further, I'll put the motion on the floor that COR 38-2025 Consolidated Fee Bylaw Report be received and that council consider bylaw 60-2025 being a bylaw to set the various fees for the municipality for 2026. Is someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Pridham, second by Councillor Edney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Next up is the reserves and reserve fund policy update. Spencer, please.
Thank you, through your worship. As part of our annual review, staff have evaluated the reserves and reserve funds policy. This was first established in 2023 and then subsequently updated in 2024. Today, we're recommending the creation of a new reserve specifically related to the 14 Church Street Community Hub project. The purpose of the reserve will be to fund future construction and related costs in a proactive manner, helping to reduce pressure on the tax levy as the project progresses. It will also help to improve transparency around the project and provide council direct oversight over these funds. The recommended updates to the policy have been detailed in the report. Secondly, staff are proposing a $73,000 transfer to this reserve, if approved, in the 2026 budget, which comes from the existing budgeted transfer to the general capital reserve. It's important to note that this is just a reallocation and does not result in any increase to the tax levy. The rationale behind this transfer is to help smooth out future budget impacts related to the project. and I'll now open the floor to any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Questions with regards to the reserve policy and where we're going forward? I mean, the reality is we've been very aggressive with our reserve funding, and now we're looking at a new way to allocate and to be transparent and show going forward how we're going to fund some of the projects, which we will have a discussion about later when it comes back to the budget as well. But this is a proposal. We discussed it briefly in the first budget session, a bit about how we're going to fund and go forward. Questions? Everyone's okay? All right, I'll put the motion, thank you, Spencer. I'll put the motion on the floor then, if that's okay. That COR 39-2025 Reserves and Reserves Funds Policy Report be received, and the council approves the updates to Policy FIN-P-02 Reserves and Reserve Funds Policy Appendix A as presented in Report COR 39-2025, and the council approves the 2026 budgeted transfer of $73,000 to the 14 Church Street Community Hub Reserve to be reallocated from the General Capital Reserve, and the council consider bylaw 59-2025 being a bylaw to amend the reserves and reserve fund policy. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Alwood. Is there a seconder? Councillor Edney. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, Spencer. So, which leads us to item 7.3. At the break, I did ask the CEO that not only we should go through and summarize sort of step by step the presentations that came today and what effect that would have on the budget, but also do an overall summary, because I have watched videos and looked a lot into this mayor's budget thing. It is quite complex. There is conflicting information, conflicting opinions on some of the things. So I have spent time with the clerk and the CAO with regards to our strategy, what we see as how the legislation means. Jenna has done a tremendous amount of research on it and how things go forward. And I asked our CEO if he would sort of clarify for us as to what we've done as a group, how things stand statutorily, what the presentations mean today, so we can go through each one of them briefly and decide what we want to do, if we want to change the budget, and at this time, anything else that anyone wants to talk about within the budget, so that we hopefully avoid this goofy back and forth veto and blah, blah, blah that the province has produced, because I think it is counterintuitive to the process that we've done so far. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Kitmer if I can, please.
Yeah, so thank you, Your Worship. So it's interesting to think that the province and the Premier wanted to implement a new budget process to simplify things, and probably we're at the most complicated part of the budget right now, because if you were to ask me in this moment, when do I think the budget's going to be approved, deemed adopted, I'd have to say to you, I don't know, because we're now at a point where, depending on decisions that council makes either today or maybe in several days from now, it'll all kind of affect our timeline. So in terms of our budget process, up to this point, you've now reviewed a full version of your capital budget. You've reviewed a full version of the operating budget. First, the capital budget proposed by staff, which was then fully replicated in the mayor's budget. An operating budget, which was proposed by staff and then fully replicated in the mayor's budget with some currency updates as outlined by Mr. Steckley. You've now heard from all of your external parties who are asking for funds from the town. In some instances, the funds they're asking for are the exact amounts that are in the mayor's budget. In some instances, they're not, so we'll have to go through those. And then the final thing that you haven't reviewed is community grants. But as we've experienced in the last few years, community grants, the budget's set at $56,000, and then typically what happens is council will just look at the applications, and if we're oversubscribed, we'll prorate down to make sure that everybody gets a little bit of something so that we meet budget. So you're at the point in your budget process where you have to consider two different questions as council. Do we want to make amendments to the budget, and do we want to shorten our period for statutory amendments? And so it's probably best to go through the first part first. You'll see some examples, and the clerk has mentioned this, that there are already municipalities that ahead of their budget process passed a resolution saying, we want to shorten down our review period on the amendments to 10 days so that we move this thing along quicker. We chose not to do that here because I didn't think it was fair to presume what council's will was. There was nothing. If the mayor had tabled you a budget that looked significantly different than what you saw on October 21st, it would never have been fair to ask you if you wanted to make a shortening of your amendment period, because you may have wanted to go through it with a very careful fine-tooth comb. But we're at the point now where you're getting essentially the same budget. So your options are, you can consider amendments today because we're sitting as council. You can consider them at your next regular council meeting, which is on November 25th, because we're still in that 30-day window, or you could set a special meeting. So I guess the question is do you want to consider any amendments today? And the amendments you would be considering are deciding whether or not to fund the hospital foundation for $25,000, which is in addition to the budget. Deciding what portion of the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame's capital ask of $26,842 you might want to fund, and then whether or not you wish to fund the capital ask of the mobility bus, which is $25,000. So those are the three numbers that aren't in your budget today, and each of them would be funded from a reserve. So I think that's probably the best place to go is, do you want to consider those three asks today? And if you do, we can start with Hospital Foundation at asking $25,000 over budget.
Yeah, okay, so I think that's fair. We'll go through the three presentations, and just to be clear, whether they do or don't have an impact on the levy. The first one, the Hospital Foundation, would have an impact on the levy in terms of the number.
Impact on the, you either choose to levy fund it or transfer it to them from a different reserve. In the past, we've typically either funded it from our annual general surplus, which it goes into reserve, or we send them a larger transfer from the PUC reserve, or you just let it consume your community grant budget. But as I said, there's no funding source for that $26,000 or $25,000 in the budget today.
Okay. Councilor Luna.
Thank you, Richard. So the 75 is already in the budget, and we're talking about 25 either coming out of reserves or affecting the levy, just so I got it.
And in an effort of full transparency, last year when the budget was presented, it was presented at $50,000 to hospitals. During last year's budget, you received a request from the St. Mary's Hospital Foundation for $100,000, so they wanted their increase to go from 50 to 100. You also received a capital campaign request from the Stratford Hospital Foundation. So in the budget, you actually have $125,000 of grants that goes to hospitals. $75,000 is your annual commitment to the St. Mary's Hospital Foundation, and then you have a $50,000 commitment to the Stratford Hospital Foundation that will go forward for 6 years.
Okay. Councilor Luna, yeah?
So are we asking for a motion to do it, of what to do with this 25,000?
Well, we only need a motion if you wish to add it to the budget.
So we have allocated, if I can, we've allocated $75,000 to the St. Mary's Hospital, and we increased it by $50,000 or by $25,000 last year. It used to be 50, went to 75. So in essence, they've come this year and asked for 100. So we have not budgeted for us, and at the risk of taking public criticism for this year, when we asked them last year if there was any big asks forthcoming in terms of, we talked about the roof and the wellness center, they said there wasn't. So I'm a little disappointed because we asked to try and plan because we had set the 125 that way, and now they've come and said, well, we have this X-ray endeavor, which again, it's the same, the same frustration I felt with Upper Thames, the same thing in terms of planning because, we can't, it's hard for us. We increased our allocation to hospitals by 50% last year, and then this year again, we're asking for another 50%, which is hard in these times. Councilor Luna.
Thank you, Rich. So I am in favor of maintaining the $75,000 contribution to the foundation, taking the $25,000 from reserves to not affect the levy, and maintaining that $50,000 obligation to Stratford Hospital. I don't know if that has to be a motion, saying it, not a motion?
Just so I understand you clearly, so I think we're going to need a motion on this if it changes the budget. So you're saying we fund the request that they've made?
Yes,
Okay.
but the 25,000 come out of reserves as the CAO.
Okay, that's fine. Then we
indicated, so
will.
as to not affect the.
We will need a motion for that then, if you don't mind.
Okay.
If it's confusing, I've asked for it to be struck, the original amount, and replaced with 150
Any questions or clarifications before Councilor Luna puts this on the floor? Councilor Craig Mao? I'll give her a second just to look at this. Yeah.
Well, Councilor Luna's writing that up. I guess my question is, when is it we're doing community grants?
So the community grant windows close on November 30th, and then I would think it's going to take a few weeks for staff to get through them and have them presented. But just with the holiday schedule, it won't be at your strategic priorities committee meeting in January. It'd likely be at the strategic priorities committee meeting in February.
So because I haven't seen what's there yet, it might be. I'm just thinking out loud because I haven't seen it yet. It might be worthwhile having something in there that it's either funded through reserves or the community grants. Because I don't know what's there, so there might be money left there. Or there might, it's just keeping our options open. That's all I'm trying to do.
Procedurally, how would that work? So we would have to amend the budget again at that time, then we not, or how would that work?
At that time, you actually have a little bit more flexibility because once a budget's deemed adopted, the only in-year amendment, you only have to pass a formal amendment if you're going to change your levy amount, which you wouldn't be doing. So what we understand from this new process is that if you're funding things from reserve and you're not going to levy any new money, you have more flexibility and you just direct staff to fund things from reserve at that point in time.
So is it necessary to say that in the motion, or can you just lead the motion and then at that time we can make the decision?
If it says reserve and it's non-specific, then it gives us some flexibility to do it from the PUC reserve or just from our general capital reserve or our working funds.
Sorry, Councilor, I was stealing your thunder, but I just want clarification on that, that's all. So sorry, go ahead.
With all due respect to the clerk, I'm confused by this motion that she's written. I'll just read it. She says that as per regulation, blah, 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 strike $125,000 from the external reserve transfer and replace with $150,000 for grants to hospitals so that St. Mary's Healthcare Foundation is in receipt of $100,000 in 2026. Is that saying what I'm saying?
It's saying the same thing. Essentially what you want to say is we're approving of increasing the transfer to the hospital foundation by $25,000 and we want it funded from reserve. So you just might want to add some language to the end of that saying that it's funded. Yeah, funded from reserve.
It says that there, though. It says external reserves in there.
Okay.
Oh, no, replace with 154 grants.
Yeah, but this is where it's getting a little overcomplicated. Spencer, can you jump on the grants that we give to the hospital foundation? Those are base levy amounts, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you increase the way it's written, can I see the motion, please?
Yeah. I thought that would cover it, but I just want to be sure.
I'm a very black and white person, so to me, the 25,000 is for the x-ray machine specifically, and 75 is our regular contribution, and then there's another 50 to Stratford Hospital, so is that?
Yeah, all of those amounts are already in your budget. So all I've done is keyed in on the new amount. So it's saying $25,000 one time in 2026 only, and to be funded from reserves. You can say one time in 2026 for X-ray machine if you want that specificity.
Please, yeah.
So the motion I'm putting on the floor is that as regulated under OReg 530-2022, Section 7.3, council amends the mayor's 2026 proposed budget to increase the grant to the St. Mary's Hospital Foundation by $25,000 one time in 2026 to be funded from reserves.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Moved by Councilor Luna. Councilor Pridham seconds. Discussion. Councilor Craigmile.
Thank you, Worship. I'm in full support of Councilor Luna's motion. I'd just like to reiterate what we heard from the Hospital Foundation, that they still have a doctor that they haven't replaced in 2 or 3 years. They're trying for 3, but of that 3, 2 of them would replace what they have lost and currently going to lose. And I did hear that there is no other large ticket item that they expect in the next 5 years. So I think that's important too, because by then we should be done with our donation to the Stratford Hospital. So I think that's well received, and I think we should be supporting that X-ray machine.
Okay, thank you. Anything further from council? Councilor Edney?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think one of the things we requested last year was to understand the balance of the foundation moving forward, and I don't know that we saw that today.
I'm uncertain whether we asked for that last year. I know that information is publicly available if you look for it on a website, but I'm not sure if we requested that last year or not. I don't know.
Last year's motion was to ask them for a reconciliation of how they spent our money. So that was a little chart they attached to their letter.
We certainly can. If that's your wishes, we can send them a letter, or we can do whatever you want, but that's, okay. Okay. Anything further on this motion? Seeing nothing, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Okay, so your second over budget ask is from the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. So the way our our operations and maintenance agreement works with the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, the town owns the land, but in effect, the St. Mary's Baseball Hall of Fame is responsible for owning and operating every other asset at the site. So in their agreement, it sets out that they're responsible for all capital improvements, but nothing prevents them from asking the town for a contribution or a grant towards those capital investments. So early on in the budget process, Mr. Crawford did come forward and spoke to Stephanie and just noted that this fencing was an issue. Upon further conversation and exploration, what Stephanie had discussed with Mr. Crawford was to point out that they don't actually have an asset management plan for the site. So they don't have a good schedule of when they want to replace things and the condition of it. So in your capital budget, you'll see that there's a condition assessment that's proposed at $10,000, 50% funded by the town. So that's already something that you've considered and gave consensus to in the capital budget. This is the secondary ask that we hadn't included in the budget because we felt this was council's will to decide whether or not they wanted to fund this project and at what level. So in the past, we have received similar capital requests, and council would either fund 0% of the capital request, typically up to 50 or 75%. So it's $26,842 that they're asking for fencing, and we'll leave it to council's discretion if you wish to fund any or all of this project.
Yeah, but just to be clear, they haven't said they would pay 50% of it.
They did not, no.
So this is a little different. I'll leave it at that. Questions, comments? Councilor Craigmile.
Thank you, Worship. I understand what we heard, and it may be real important that fence is changed. But I'm just wondering, because we're spending the money to get an assessment of the entire facility, and the results from that may be completely different than the top priority is a fence, I'm just not sure if the money would be spent at the right place.
Councilor Edney?
Thank you, Worship. I concur with Councillor Craigmile. I actually thought, even as a board member, that this request seems a little the cart before the horse. So I was thinking much the same thing.
Councilor Pridham.
Thank you. I have no idea what sort of financial position the Baseball Hall of Fame is. Do they have reserves? How much money do they have? And, you know, the need for asking. And maybe that's something we should know if we're going to be taking over the facility maintenance. How much is there that we can rely on in support for our now new obligations?
So in terms of what funds do they have to help us offset our operating costs of cutting the grass, there are none. The way the agreement works out is it's a bit complicated, but it's also not at the same time. So when we made the decision as a town to fund King Diamond, it was in partnership with the Ball Hall, and it was done. The town funded 100% of the construction costs there, so that we could move our municipal baseball program fully up to the Ball Hall. Through the years, we eventually settled on an arrangement where, because it was a municipal responsibility to normally have baseball diamonds, but they were contained at the Ball Hall, we pay them as a contractor to maintain the baseball diamonds, and so we remit to them, this year it was $80,000 for ball field operations. The way the agreement works, though, is that if they ever can't fulfill their obligations under the contract, the town has the right to step in and do the work, and we just stop transferring the money. And so that's the situation we're in today. So rather than transfer them $80,000 in 2025, what's going to happen by the end of this year is a reconciliation will occur of how much effort we've put into the ball diamonds, and we'll reduce their payment by that amount. So they actually have to demonstrate that their actual costs incurred on baseball diamond maintenance, and that's what we actually pay by the end of the year. So moving forward, we'll just see that $80,000 not going into the Ball Hall anymore. It'll just be funded through our staffing budgets to maintain it.
I think my question was more like for other costs like the fencing, that sort of thing. Do they have money? Do they have reserve funds? Do they have something that they can contribute towards these costs?
That I'm not aware of. Maybe as a board member, Councillor Edney would know. I know their financial positions kind of fluctuated through the years.
There aren't a great deal of reserves. We're recovering, of course, from COVID, as many places are. I don't know if I'm not sure if Spencer has access to. I can't tell you the specific amount, but it's not a huge amount. Yeah.
I don't know what huge means.
I can't. No, there's 60 maybe. Yeah. And I could be way off, but I'm that figure is familiar to me. So.
Yeah, I know a couple of years ago that, you know, I can't remember the number you did. They had over 200 at one point, but again, there's been so many changes in staffing and different things. I don't have access. The last financial statement that I saw was quite some time ago, to be honest. But I guess I would like to ask, when is the assessment supposed to be done in terms of the capital stuff? Do you have an idea when that would be finished, Brad?
So my thought would be is that that would be a 2026 project, and by mid to 3/4 of the way through the year, we'd have a condition assessment that we could then help translate into a 10-year capital plan for them. So this fencing project would just be delayed for a year to 2027 if it was a top priority project.
Councillor Luna?
Thank you, Worship. What I understood from Mr. Crawford's presentation was that there's this big baseball happening in June, I think he said, and that this fence would be an embarrassment to them and the town perhaps because it's in disrepair. So is that going to affect our decision?
I mean, that's part of our decision, but I mean, from where I said, I don't know. I never heard anything about safety about the fence. I see some pictures, but I don't know if there's safety concerns or not. I don't know.
I'll just, I guess I can reiterate for council that through your priority setting sessions, it was actually Councillor Pridham that brought this up, that, you know, encouraging staff to forget about cosmetics as a rationale for doing a project, right? So the skate tile at the PRC is a great example. Cosmetically, no, it doesn't look as modern and shiny as others, but it's still functional. And as long as it's something still functional, then we should think about extending the life of that asset longer. So, you know, cosmetically, no, the fence does not look good, but from a safety perspective, will it impact play when it's bent? Yes, it will. You just won't get a true bounce off of it. But is it unsafe? I haven't been out there personally to look at it to provide an opinion, so I don't know. But I don't think, again, I think our instruction as staff was to move beyond cosmetics as being something we worry about and use to defend a project going forward.
I didn't hear anything about safety today, but sorry, Councilor Pridham.
I'm just aligning more with Councillor Craig Marl and Councillor Edney's suggestions that the asset management plan is maybe the one thing we should have before we make decisions on spending more money.
Councilor Alward?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I think that the philosophy of foregoing cosmetics to save costs is one that I will continue to maintain, and I think that we should endorse it here and wait for that that asset management plan.
Councilor Craig Mile?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And as Mr. Crawford said in his presentation, that a few years ago they replaced the backstop, and I do believe he mentioned the Jays Care came through with some of the funds to do that. And as I looked at that final game, Game 7 there, and it was a little over $22 million. We'll see what comes to St. Mary's to look after the ball.
Councilor Pridham?
That also crossed my mind. I was thinking, is there some sort of naming situation somewhere that there can be a fund for the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame from the Canadian baseball teams? But yeah.
It is possible if this report becomes a priority, it could be done in the spring and we still could hit baseball season. That's still a possibility. Yeah.
I think we have to be cognizant that as much as there is supposed to be, separation of two corporations, it is the town's property. We still would have some occupier's liability that if a conditioning assessment came back with anything that was a grave safety issue, we would want to fix it right away. And I know we would step up to help.
But currently we don't know that.
But that's the issue. Currently, we don't know what the most priority project is. So if you're feeling that way, again, just for transparency in the record, it might be prudent just to pass a resolution to the effect of that it be declined, the $26,842 request be declined in favor of receiving the condition assessment.
I would think that's wise. Does someone want to make that motion? Okay. Moved by Councilor Edney that the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame capital request be declined until the assessment report is received.
Yeah, that's great.
Is that, Councilor Edney, does that cover what?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, and just to clarify too, if I were sitting on the board and we were talking about spending the board's money, but we're talking about spending St. Mary's money on this.
Yep.
And I think the best gift, the best thing that we can give them is this assessment so we can look at it. I think that's the most important thing that the ball hall needs right now. And then they can make a case that we can't deny. So yeah, I feel the assessment needs to be done first. And I understand where Scott's coming from. If he has to present the lands, in this big tournament coming up, and maybe the priority does fall back on to the ball hall.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion before we go into discussion? Councilor Pridham seconds. Okay, thank you. Further discussion with regards to the motion, Councilor Pridham?
There was also mentioned the building itself, the museum building. Is that part of the assessment?
From what I understand the scope to be, yes.
Okay. Anything further? Councilor Pridham?
Thank you. I really think it's important that the major baseball teams, Major League Baseball teams, recognize that this building is housing their artifacts. And if there's something that should go wrong with the building, like within this report that we find, it now then lies upon the town of St. Mary's to house and keep safe all of the artifacts from Major League Baseball or any other baseball as well. But it seems like an unfair obligation. And I don't know if that should be something that the board, the Baseball Hall of Fame board recognizes, but it'll be interesting to see this assessment report and how that shakes down for the town of St. Mary's.
Okay. Councilor Edney?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I could further to Councilor Pridham's point, it is called the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, not the St. Mary's Baseball Hall of Fame. So I believe that federal dollars should really take precedence in this case. Or if we have an agreement, that's fine, but I think federal dollars need to be brought into this equation as well.
Okay, thank you. Anything further on this point? Jenna, do you have a copy of the motion? Is worded okay? Okay, then I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Third item?
So the third and final request is the request from St. Mary's Mobility. They're asking for $25,000 to help fund their capital purchase of a new vehicle. And from what I understand from Mr. Steckley is that if approved, that would just come from our gas tax reserve.
Okay. Questions with regards to this? Councilor Edney?
Thank you, Worship. Again, it's coming from reserves, and it will also help when they're approaching other potential people to support this, including the Rotary Club, Perth South, and many of the other ones that have been earmarked already. So,
Anything further? So I'd be willing to entertain a motion to that effect. Motion. Someone willing to? Can you just read it, please? Yeah.
So the motion reads that as regulated under OReg 530, 2022, Section 7.3, Council amends the Mayor's 2026 proposed budget to add $25,000 to the external reserve transfer for St. Mary's and Area Mobility Service capital expenditure.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Councillor Alward. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, so those are the three requests from today. Can you update us, the Coles Note version, on where we're at? And because this can get quite complicated, actually.
Yes, and so I can do my best to be your tour guide, but where we go is council's decision now. So under the legislation, now council has made amendments to the mayor's budget. So I think the next question for council to consider is, are there any other amendments you wish to make to the budget? So everything we've done today hasn't affected the levy in any way. It stands at 3.88% net. But again, as I've said before, you've heard the operating budget, had some time to consider it. You've heard the capital budget, had some time to consider it. Are there any other amendments you wish to make to the budget is the first question you have to ask yourself.
Okay. Anything anyone wants to talk about in terms of capital or operating or anything we've covered in the budget process so far? Spencer, we missed anything as far as the process? Are you satisfied we've covered everything?
Through your worship, no, everything looks to be covered.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this time, we have a chance if anyone wants to make any amendments, now would be a time to make a motion. Okay, step two.
Okay, so if council, if you're confident that you're done making amendments to the budget and you're not going, nothing's going to spring to your mind in the next few days, to move this along, what we recommend is that you do reduce your statutory period for making amendments. So statutorily, it stands at 30 days, and you can reduce that to any number you want. At this point in time, the minimum you could do is 7, and that would reduce it to the end of day today. And if you're very confident that you don't want to make any more amendments, that is our recommendation so that the budget process can move along. So you would pass a resolution, it's loosely crafted here, that council reduces the statutory period for making amendments to the mayor's proposed, or Jenna, do you have a pre-written one? Okay, Jenna has a pre-written one, but we'd say to do it to insert 7 days into her pre-written one. I think Jenna has a bit more fancy legalese in some of hers. So if council's open to that, we'll have Jenna produce the prepared motion.
Well, 7 is what we
7 is
talked
my
about,
recommendation to, and
unless, I mean, it's open to council. Does anyone have any input? I mean, to be quite transparent, Jen and I, Brent, talked a lot about this. We had a whole meeting and how we're going to do it. And because, to be quite frank, it's not easy to make the budget process this year the same as it's been in the past. And that's what we all agreed on, okay, legislation. So that's the reason we're doing this. Because normally we would meet and we'd say, hey, everyone okay? We'd pass the budget, it'd be over. Statutorily, we can't do that anymore, okay? So what we're doing is trying to say, we're good with the budget. That's what this all says. Someone willing to have a look at this? Councilor Craig Mah?
Today's the 18th. So 7 days would be the 25th, but it says it ends up.
No, it's from when it started,
From yes, from when the mayor tabled his budget, so.
which was the 11th.
Mayor tabled his budget on the 11th, so reducing your statutory period to 7 days means your period for amendments ends as of midnight tonight.
Okay, so it's been 7 days since he tabled.
Yeah, November 11th. So basically so basically what we're asking council, that motion says, are you willing to pass the budget today, is what it says. Yeah. So then if you don't mind reading that, Jim, with your mic on, please. Mike?
I'll read the prepared motion. That is regulated under Ontario Reg 530/22, Section 74. Council shortens the 30-day period for budget amendments to 7 days, denoting that the amendment period ends on November 18th, 2025.
Someone willing to second that motion? Councillor Alward, second. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? The motion's carried. I'll just defer to our clerk. Is there anything in finality else we need to do?
I'll speak. So now someone on council, you've passed a resolution that says by the end of today, you're done with the budget. So now it turns back to the mayor's hands. So because you made amendments,
yes,
the mayor now, it will enact starting tomorrow a 10-day period where the mayor can make vetoes to those amendments. So the mayor has a statutory right to say, I don't agree with those amendments and I want to veto them. If he chooses to do that, then when his veto period ends, you would have 15 days to override it through a 2/3 vote. Having spoken to the mayor yesterday as we charted this out, I don't suspect the mayor plans to make any vetoes. So what he has the option to do today or tomorrow is to issue a mayoral direction or mayoral decision that shortens his veto period down to a period of time. So our recommendation to him is that if he wishes not to veto, he can shorten down his veto period to 1 day, ending tomorrow. So if that happens, that means that on November 20th, which is 30th, your budget will be deemed adopted and we're done.
And that was my intention. We've talked about this. Respectfully, there's been several different scenarios, and this is what we talked about. Okay. So, given that I've done so much work on the budget already this far, actually, I will be discussing with Jenna what my letter will look like, right? So, any questions? Okay, Brent? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I find it interesting this, you've kind of hit upon it as well, Brent, but that it feels like it's an adversarial thing now as opposed to a cooperative thing, and that it just feels awkward. So I just want to voice that I'm also opposed to the way the budget, I'm not opposed to the budget we're presenting, just the format seems just like too much work. We've always worked well together as a council and previous councils as well. And it's just odd that the province would want us to have an adversarial sort of approach to this. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Any other comments with regards to the budget process? As far as I'm concerned, we're done. But Brent, you want to just clarify what happens now?
Yeah. So as the mayor is correct, the only outstanding thing you have that you would typically have done in the budget process is community grants. So we'll aim to have those to you by the SPC meeting in February. But as of passing that resolution, as of the end of today, council will have concluded their budget process, and you've achieved your target of 4% at 3.88. I think the only thing that we have to watch, though, is that we achieved that budget by once again being very diligent and looking at our own operations and finding areas to be efficient, to save money, and also to make sure that, based on trend analysis, our revenues coming in are matching what we're actually achieving. So, that was a $264,000 swing in our budget that we did ourselves. The concerning trend I think we see here that's continued on from COVID. So during COVID, it was really easy for everybody to say, oh my gosh, inflation's high, budget, 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 budget. And we continue to talk about in the external market and complain about how, we still have to spend, $7 for a bag of milk. And it's, those COVID prices have never come down. But one of my criticisms of publicly funded entities right now is that neither has it's very easy to tax and spend philosophy that's happened. So you're seeing your external partners come in at, significant increases, double inflation, and they haven't really checked themselves yet. So what we're doing is we're reducing our budget and finding efficiencies to continue to make sure that these external parties don't negatively impact our budget. At some point in time, something has to change, because we can't do that forever, or else we will start seeing service level reductions in our community, or we'll just start seeing tax increases more like we're seeing in some of our peer municipalities, but certainly our peer external organizations. With the exception of somebody like the health unit. The health unit came in at less than inflation. They took it seriously, and they haven't just kind of stayed on the tax and spend kind of approach. So it is something to watch. It's certainly the first budget of a new council term could end up being difficult if we're still talking about all these easy excuses to increase budgets. It's easy to say that tariffs are the problem. Well, I always philosophically disagree with that. I say you just look at your own budget and find a way to make it work and find a way to make it more efficient, or maybe you have to make some minor and necessary cuts. But I just don't feel that the philosophy that's shared around this council table is shared with everybody, and we just have to watch that, I think, as we go forward. But overall, sorry, Councilor Nova, overall, it's been a really good budget process, our most efficient in my 10 years here, and very, very, very close to what we've done in the past, with the exception of just having to pass extra resolutions and make sure that we've checked off all the boxes statutorily so that the province is happy.
Councilor Luna?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to speak to Spruce Lodge. We have not passed our budget yet. We're doing that tomorrow. Hopefully the Finance Committee of the board has looked at it and approved it. And we are at the end of our 3-year plan that we had significant increases. So I don't know what was presented to the town as far as Spruce Lodge, but I'm thinking it was a 17% increase over last year. Does that sound right?
I don't know specifically. Spencer might have better information.
That's correct. Right now, we're sitting at approximately a 17% increase.
So next, we're hoping that now the lodge is in a better financial position, and going forward, we can be on more of an even keel.
Councilor Craig Mile?
Thank you, Your Worship. If I can follow up just on the same topic that Councilor Luna is talking about. The process seems to be working very, very well, and I think it's because of the length of time our CAO and the senior management's been there, but it's making it easy. And now when I go through it, I think I'm nitpicking on little things of information that are given us. As I said to Spencer last time, I'd like to see the actuals in there. And one of the notes I wrote down here was on external transfers. I think it would be really nice now to see a living spreadsheet that maybe shows the last, whether it be 5 years or 3 years, of all the external contracts, whether it be Spruce Lodge, Upper Thames, and show what that transfer is and what the percent increase was in 2023, 2024, so that you can see what's going on. So that, because as we sit here, those are the kind of information that I don't have at the top of my head that I'd really like to see, because the whole program is so well done for budgeting, you know? And I don't know how everybody else feels, but it'd be really useful information.
Okay, thank you. I have one suggestion too, if I can. Given the fact that we've altered our reserve policy and there's a lot of information, and we are embarking on a major project across the road at 14 Church Street. There's been a lot of information, respectfully, I don't want to be critical, but some of the information has changed and been mishmash. I think we need to have another session at strategic priorities in the new year that outlines more clearly, if I can, what our actual costs are, the different operating scenarios, because it was kind of loose when we did that council, could be A, could be B, whatever, just to concisely talk about all the things, because I am hearing from councillors and people in the community the question of how do we fund it and go forward in the going forward. My response has been that it's a strategic initiative. There's a number of things we can talk about. Nothing changing at the library in 40 years. We can talk about our commitment to culture and art in the community, but also we have a plan, and it's, I would say, too loose at this point. I think we need to be more detailed in terms of different options, so that over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, council can make the decision, said, we did this is how we're funding it, this is how we changed our reserve because our reserves were adequate, and spells it out more clearly so all of us are more comfortable. And I think it's just a matter of laying it out, because we have actually put the pieces, but we need to actually, I think, have another look at, so everyone's on the same page. So that we're talking about the money that's been set aside in DCs that we can apply, the money we've already set aside to maintain the building, and the different options for operating the thing to show a 5-year thing, how, if it comes together in 4 or 5 years, how we're gonna operate it and how we're gonna fund it. And that's something I think staff should consider, and I don't know the work involved in that, but we could talk about that.
It's not overly difficult because it's already in hand. And again, this is something that the mayor and I have talked about because, again, today council made a decision to put $73,000 in reserve as a first step to the financing strategy of 14 Church Street. And if next year the next council decides to put in the remaining half of it, then that sets up that project to be almost insignificant on the tax base. And so it's been an interesting experience for me because I think everybody's attached themselves to a number of $360,000. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's going to cost that much to operate. That was just a consolidated number based on a number of assumptions that I made. And the one error I made in our August 26th report is we put a healthy amount of time into helping council understand the rationale of the project, the vision, and why it's needed. And then the finance side, it's because we're so early, it's hard to have any concrete numbers, but we do have a fairly robust financial assessment behind it and a financial strategy. And I don't mind presenting it because I think probably if I was in your shoes, I'd say, wow, Brent's really acting out of character. Like, he usually gets a little bit kind of shaky when we're spending money. In this instance, I'm not, because I benefit of living in the numbers every day and seeing how when I think about value for dollar and how affordable this project is going to be for our community on a build side and also on an operating side, I'm not worried about it because I know the numbers I've been living it. But I'm happy to present those because I think that's something that's going to definitely benefit Sarah and the library as they go on their capital campaign to show people that this is actually how affordable this project is. And I think the other day when I was looking at it, we may be taking on only $1 million in debt to do the project, which is, again, it sounds kind of strange to say this is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. People are buying houses for that amount of money. And we would just be building a community anchor for it. So I'm happy to bring it back because I think it's incumbent on me to give some comfort to council because I know there is some discomfort around the table and help explain the assumptions and how we can attach ourselves right now to certain numbers and how actually most of what I presented to you in August was truly worst case scenario. And when we show worst case scenario, we're trying to do that to manage risk and make sure that council understands how bad it can be, but it always means it can be better than that. And we surely expect it to be better than that. So.
Okay, anything else with regards to budget? Councillor Alward?
Thanks, Your Worship. I think I just wanted to say that the mayor has put together a very astute analysis of the current climate. And I think that I look forward to what the CAO exactly has in terms of an operational plan and how exactly we are going to fund this thing. So thank you very much for bringing that forward, and I look forward to seeing it.
Okay, so can you give this one to Jim? And Brogan, if you'll do that one, please. Councillor Craigmile?
And if I could just follow up on that, also important in this discussion is there's some major debentures coming off of this year, next, so, and that's all part and parcel of the,
It's all part and parcel of how do you easily weave it in to make sure that you can do the project and you don't impact your levy. But as Mr. The most beautiful thing that's happening to us right now is that we recommended that we put $150,000 a year into a reserve right now to start saving for the project. And then that $150,000 a year gets transferred from a reserve contribution to debt payments when we take on debt. Because we're remaining to be very aggressive in how we contribute to reserve for capital, you did the first half of it this year without actually levying any new money. You just redirected capital money that you were raising anyways for your asset management plan and put it into reserve. And if that happens again next year, you'll have put that $150,000 is already in the budget, and you've just done it without impacting the levy anyway. And it's going to be available and ready there. It's going to grow in a reserve for a few years. To the point where I bet you have around $500,000 to $600,000 in reserve when you do the build, and it just easily slips into debt, and then you're funding the project without letting the debt impact your operating budget. The other interesting thing that you've done is that when we sat there and looked at the capital costs in August, and it was around between $4 and $5 million left to fund the project, Well, you've already funded close to $700,000 of it this year through reserve by choosing to do windows and getting the storm sewer. So like that, now that balance goes down. And I think the part that was in a report that wasn't really clear either is that we already have $1 million in DCs for that project. So there's another $1 million off the project, plus what you've saved. When I look at the capital side of it, I can very easily say, this is coming off, this is coming off. I just put that in there to be transparent with council, but that's actually a 2035 cost, so that doesn't even matter. Now I have around $900,000 to fund in that project. That starts to sound like a pretty affordable project.
Councilor Britton?
Thank you. My concern is that project with the Carling Street project coming on as well, and the amount of debt that that is going to incur, and how that picture looks for our, you know, should it be staggered? Is there a strategy that we need to look at so that we can afford both and not take huge hits within the next 2-3 years?
And the answer to that is you're going to have to make some strategic decisions for sure. I think the answer to that is that I think we can get the 14 church project down to a point where the debt is very, very, very manageable, and the debt servicing is very manageable. And then, you know, my original philosophy was that as PRC debt came off and debt for the MOC as well, so we have 2 debentures there that we're contributing a lot of money towards. That's, you know, you could consider what our asset management strategy says is that when debt comes off, that debt payment should go into a capital reserve, because that helps you achieve your 40-year asset management strategy. You could make it a strategic decision to say, well, we want to take on more debt and use old debt to fund new debt. And I think that's the money you use for the Carling Street project. The only other thing I can say, and I can disclose this at some point in time in a closed session, is the private market may fill the industrial need. We may not have to develop that project.
Okay, I'll defer. We'll get these 2 items before we get too far ahead of ourselves. I'll defer to Councilor Craigmile for motion.
Thank you, Ray. A motion here that staff report back to council during the 2027 budget deliberation with a 5-year historical summary of external transfer requests and approvals.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councilor Alward. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Councilor Alward, do you have a motion?
Yes, I'll put forward a motion that staff report back to council the 2026 strategic priority setting meeting with a funding forecast to support the 14 Church Street Community Commons capital project.
A seconder for that motion? Councilor Luna. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, anything else we need to discuss? We've passed the budget. Anything else for meetings going forward, or any questions about process now? Councilor Luna?
Thank you, Worship. Just to go back to something Councilor Edney said about the whole thing being, the whole budget process could become controversial. And I think I have this little fear that depending on who's sitting in the chair in the next 4 years after the election, the whole thing could become controversial, and all these plans that we're talking about could all be for naught. Is that reasonable?
It's 100% correct, because you're already seeing that. We're very lucky here to have a very amicable approach, and we're still being collaborative. There are other municipalities out there where the mayor is just fully taking on the approach of saying, staff, I don't want you to do, you will prepare the estimates as I direct you to. And the mayor is tabling budgets, and the mayor is canceling projects, and the mayor is adding new projects. It's all depending on the personality sitting in the chair.
Councilor Craigmile?
Thank you. Just so I can clear my thoughts on this again, just now that we've passed the budget, the mayor has to wait his 7 days or something, or and so after that 7 days, whatever that date is, December, whatever, 2nd, 1st, he can just come into your office or come in here, he'll just sign it and it's done?
So actually nothing really happens. So now, starting tomorrow, the mayor has a 10-day window to veto any of the amendments from today. So it's 10 calendar days, not business days. So that would take us to November 29th. If the mayor decides to sign today a mayoral direction or decision, whichever the clerk calls it, saying that he reduces that veto period to 1 day, then your budget would be in a spot where everybody's done touching it on Thursday, and it's just deemed adopted. So that's one of the things that, Jenna flagged yesterday with the clerks, is that in the past, we used to have this really nice public record of a bylaw that says the budget was passed and here are all the estimates that are attached. Now we don't really even have a public record of the budget being passed. It falls on staff to make sure that in some way we document all of these timelines and make people aware that when the timelines are and when that budget was deemed passed. So the idea is, I think we'll have something maybe in our monthly report, either in November or January, just to say, for public transparency and for the historical record, when people look back, here's all the timelines we followed, and here's when the budget was deemed adopted. I can share that, if I was to estimate my time, I'd say I'd spent 2/3 of my time talking to staff about estimates and 1/3 of my time talking about process. And it's hours of process conversation this year to make sure that we get this right, because there's no guidebook. It's slightly, like all legislation, it's slightly vague, it's interpretable, it's all up to the local decision is essentially what MMAH says.
And it's fascinating, being election year, you're seeing all over the place, people saying, my budget's gonna be 2.85%, right? And that's, which, given, before we started doing anything in our budget, we were at 2.5, right? Because of external agencies, right? So how realistic would that be, right? So, so the reality is, if there's not the collaborative process with the experts, because I'm not an expert, the reality is it doesn't work, in my opinion. But to your point, yes.
And could I just clarify from the clerk, we never have heard back from the ministry that we sent the letter to back in May, requesting to be removed from the list of strong mayor municipalities? Thank you.
Okay, so is everyone okay with where we're at with the budget? Any questions? I will be visiting the clerk today to try and to waive my right to veto and push the timeline ahead so we can get working on projects. So that's just so everyone's aware. Okay? Thank you for your time. Thank you, Spencer. That was a very smooth budget process. We appreciate it. We know you put a lot of extra effort into it and some late nights, I understand. So thank you. It went really well this year. Much appreciated. Okay, so if everyone's okay, then we'll move on to bylaws. So I just seek a motion that bylaws 59, 2025, and 60, 2025 be approved by council. Is someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Edney, second by Councillor Luna. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Which moves us to the conservation, or the confirmation bylaw. The bylaw 61-2025 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this meeting be approved by council. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Craigmile, second by Councillor Alward. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And finally, I'll seek a motion that this meeting be adjourned at 12:10 p.m. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Luna, second by Councillor Pridham. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you for today.